Chapter 1141. 10 billion rain divine clone, an ancient life-saving divine ability obtained from the last glacial cave abode. It was the technique that made the water sect's 8 disciples famous. When facing certain death, this technique could allow one to split into billions of clones and escape. The deeper one's comprehension of the water element, the harder it would be to kill the clones created by this technique. 10 Lions 10 Elephants Pill, a semi-finished 10 transformation ancestral pill. It seems to be a pill that strengthens the physical body, but its effects are unknown. Rusty Iron Box, a strange iron box that ordinary low-grade innate magic treasures can't break. It seems to have the aura of the water palm master. Connate magic treasures, 8 in perfect condition, 2 half destroyed. As soon as he returned to the Myriad Saints Pass, he went into seclusion to study the loot he got from this trip. He'd obtained quite a lot of spoils from this trip, and he'd obtained 8 intact low-grade natural world magic treasures. To ordinary immortal emperors, 8 innate magic treasures were enough to drive them crazy. However, to Ning Fan, these innate magic treasures were only fit to be used to refine divine liquid regardless of whether they were in good condition or not. From the abode of the eldest of the 8 disciples of the water sect, Ning Fan also obtained a scroll of a divine ability called 10 billion rain spirit clone. When he was in the glacial immortals cave, Ning Fan did not look at this jade slip in detail because he felt that he did not lack any divine abilities. Even if this was a scroll of an ancient grand cultivation realm divine ability, it would most likely be useless to him. However, after taking a closer look, he discovered that 10 billion rain's avatar wasn't as useless as he had imagined. If this technique was successfully cultivated, one could shatter one's body into billions of avatars at the moment of certain death. At that time, as long as one of the avatars managed to escape, one's life would be saved. It was extremely practical. Many of the enemies Ning Fan had fought before knew similar abilities to escape for their lives. Ning Fan had never cultivated this kind of ability before. Now that he had obtained this technique, he could make up for one of his shortcomings. This was the shortcoming of escaping techniques. Considering that there were heaven-defying monsters like the blood god Gung Wu in the eastern boundary river, Ning Fan did not mind learning more life-saving techniques to deal with the possible dangers. The 10 Lions 10 Elephants pill was the semi-finished product of the 10 transformations ancestral pill that Ning Fan obtained from the glacial immortal cave. Using his innate ability that allowed him to communicate with all living things, Ning Fan directly talked to the pill and asked for its name. Unfortunately, the spiritual intelligence of the pill was too low. Ning Fan was unable to ask about its specific medicinal effects. He could only roughly guess that it was a type of pill that could strengthen one's physical body. Strengthening the physical body? Ning Fan shook his head. His physical body was already extremely strong. Because the foundation of his physical body was too high, even if he consumed this pill, the effects would not be too obvious. After all, this was just a semi-finished pill. If it was the real 10 transformations ancestral pill, Ning Fan might have a higher expectation. At this moment, what he was looking forward to more was the mysterious rusty iron box. It was an iron box that emitted the chi of a water realm master. Ning Fan had no idea what was inside the iron box. He was very curious about what exactly was sealed inside the iron box. Why was it able to emit the chi of the water immortal realm? Besides, the iron box was extremely sturdy. Even ordinary innate magical treasures could not break it. This made Ning Fan even more certain that this iron box was extraordinary. Just what kind of characters were the 8 children of the water sect? They were unrivaled elites who had once worked together to defeat the East Sky Ancestor Emperor. Since the Eastern Sky Ancestor Emperor was able to unify the Eastern Sky in that ancient era, he had to be a great cultivator from ancient times. Since the water sect's 8 disciples were able to defeat such an existence, they naturally couldn't be ordinary people. The Immortal Realm Master. It was not impossible for outstanding individuals like the 8 disciples of the water sect to cultivate the water immortal realm. Otherwise, how could they defeat the Eastern Sky Ancestor Emperor? Perhaps what is sealed inside this iron box is the inheritance of the water immortal realm of the 8 disciples of the water sect. What's more, there might be a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm directly sealed inside. When he thought of this possibility, Ning Fan could not help but feel a little excited even with his temperament. He had already cultivated the wood immortal realm and used it to cultivate the wood godhead. Then, he became the father god of wood. If there was really a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm in this iron box, he had great confidence that he could cultivate another water immortal realm in the water immortal realm. If he was lucky, he could even become the father god of water in this era that was lacking in divine beings and rule over all water cultivators. Becoming the father god of wood brought Ning Fan a lot of benefits. Not to mention the super strong recovery effect, the fact that it could increase the power of his wood element magic treasures by a level out of thin air already made Ning Fan very excited. If he could become the father god of water, putting everything else aside, just the power of the bottle of water drowning the world in the future would no longer be at the mid-grade innate realm. It would probably rise to the next level and reach the high-grade innate realm. That level of power could probably even drown a quasi-saint realm expert. Will there be a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm in this iron box? Ning Fan activated the 7 treasures wondrous tree with anticipation and carefully broke the seal on the iron box. With a cracking sound, the iron box was opened. What entered Ning Fan's eyes was not a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm but a fingernail-sized pebble. Isn't it a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm? Sure enough, a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm can only be found by luck. How could it be so easy to pick it up? The higher the expectation, the greater the disappointment. Ning Fan shook his head. With the firmness of his Tao heart, he instantly suppressed his disappointment. With a calm expression, he carefully examined the inconspicuous pebble in the iron box. Even if it was not a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm, it was probably not an ordinary pebble since the 8 disciples of the water sect kept it so carefully. It was a black and gray pebble. It was a stone that Ning Fan had never seen before in the age of Dharma decay. When he touched it, he could feel a massive amount of water elemental power from the pebble. This pebble naturally contained a trace of Tao fruit of the water immortal realm. It was indeed extraordinary. If it is added into a Tao tool magic treasure, it would probably greatly increase the water elemental attack power of the magic treasure. What kind of pebble are you? Ning Fan asked the pebble. Buzhou Mountain Ridge, Buzhou Mountain Ridge, Buzhou Mountain Ridge. The pebble tossed and turned but could only answer with this sentence. Buzhou Mountain Ridge? I feel like I've heard this name somewhere before. Ning Fan frowned and tried his best to recall the origin of this name. Even though cultivators had a photographic memory, it was also because of this that the amount of information stored in their minds was too large. Even though they could remember some unintentional information, it would take them a lot of effort to recall it. Not long after that, Ning Fan recalled where he had heard this name before. In the past, in order to forge the ocean-defying sword, Old Wu had given Ning Fan a yellowed ancient book which recorded the blueprints of many Tao tools with ancient diagrams. Barbarian Weapon Mountain Sea Axe. This axe can be ranked as one of the 66th grade weapons of the Holy Sect. However, it lacks the ancient country wind crystal, the earth material, the Buzhou Mountain Ridge and the earth giant's tooth. I've spent my entire life trying to forge it. It's a pity. Yes. Yes. The Buzhou Mountain Ridge is a supreme immortal material that can be used to forge a 66th grade Tao tool with ancient diagrams. One should know that the original grade of the ocean-defying sword was just a 98th grade Tao tool with ancient diagrams. Even though Ning Fan had used a lot of the eternal everlasting rain to forge the ocean-defying sword, the ocean-defying sword he forged was only equivalent to an 89th grade Tao tool with ancient diagrams. Wouldn't an immortal material that can be used to forge a 66th grade Tao tool with ancient diagrams be even more precious than the eternal everlasting rain? Currently, Ning Fan only needed a small piece of the Buzhou Mountain Ridge. He did not have enough materials. Of course, he would not forge some mountain sea axe that was a 66th grade barbarian weapon. What he wanted to do was to forge this precious Buzhou Mountain Ridge into the ocean-defying sword. The current ocean-defying sword was already extremely powerful after being embedded with the Heaven Gajad. If he fuses a piece of the Buzhou Mountain Ridge into it, its power would certainly be even more terrifying. The only problem was that fusing the Buzhou mountain ridge into the ocean-defying sword had completely deviated from the blueprints of the sword. Without the guidance of the blueprints, it was not an easy task for Ning Fan to perfectly forge the Buzhou mountain ridge into the ocean-defying sword with his own forging techniques. However, speaking of which, the blueprints of Dao tools with ancient diagrams were all created by the predecessors. Since the predecessors could create Dao tools with ancient diagrams without relying on blueprints, why couldn't Ning Fan use his own talents to find a way to add other immortal materials into the ocean-defying sword? He immediately got to work. In the next few months, Ning Fan spent all his time studying this matter. In the beginning, the process of adding the Buzhou mountain ridge into the ocean-defying sword did not go smoothly. This was because even though the Buzhou mountain ridge possessed the power of the water sovereign, it was still a mountain after all. As for the main material of the ocean-defying sword, the eternal inextinguishable rain, it was the sea. How could it be so easy to merge a mountain and a sea into one? Later on, however, Ning Fan suddenly recalled the scenes when he became the barbarian god. He recalled the mountains and seas in the eyes of the barbarians. As for the barbarians, they cultivated by imitating the ancient divine beings. Hence, when Ning Fan creatively fused a trace of divine power into the ocean-defying sword, the power of the mountains and seas between the eternal inextinguishable rain and the Buzhou mountain ridge achieved a balance. A brand new ocean-defying sword was forged by Ning Fan. It was still a beautiful sword with a dark blue body that flowed like water. However, what was different was that there were some mountain and sea lines on the surface of the sword that was like waves. The ocean-defying sword was originally an incomparably beautiful sword. Now that it was embedded with more than 1,000 pieces of heaven gajad and the mountain and sea lines, it became even more beautiful. Ning Fan was not a fan of appearances. It was not important whether the ocean-defying sword was beautiful or not. He was more concerned about the power of this sword. After fusing with the Buzhou mountain ridge, the power of this sword was already equivalent to an ancient map Dao weapon of the 80th grade. When its power skyrocketed, it was not any weaker than a real mid-grade innate magic treasure. Moreover, its power could be considered as above average among mid-grade innate magic treasures. One had to know that Dao weapons could grow together with their masters. Currently, Ning Fan was only at the Immortal King realm, but he could already make this sword display the power of a mid-grade innate magic treasure. In the future, when Ning Fan's cultivation base becomes higher, it would not be impossible for this sword to reach the high-grade innate magic treasure. Unknowingly, the ocean-defying sword had already become Ning Fan's most important attack method. However, there was also a problem. That was, after fusing with the Buzhou mountain ridge, the ocean-defying sword somehow became heavier. This greatly exceeded Ning Fan's expectation because the Buzhou mountain ridge that was fused with the ocean-defying sword was not a heavy material. According to the thinking of mortals, the mass of a material should be conserved. After fusing with the Buzhou mountain ridge, the ocean-defying sword should still be 7 stars in weight. However, the reality was that, the weight of the ocean-defying sword had more than doubled, reaching the terrifying weight of 18 stars. This did not conform to common sense at all. However, cultivation itself was something that went against common sense. The theories of mortals were not applicable. The weight of 18 cultivation planets. With such a heavy flying sword, it would be even more difficult to control it with spirit sense. Wielding the sword and slashing it would also consume a lot of strength. If Ning Fan could swing the ocean-defying sword that was 7 stars in weight for more than 1,000 times with his own strength, he could only swing the 18 stars sword 50 to 60 times before his strength would be exhausted. This gave Ning Fan a headache. The sea-calming divine needle was so heavy that it was hard to use it while the ocean-defying sword had increased in weight, increasing the difficulty of using it. Improving the strength of his physical body was an urgent matter now. Unfortunately, how could it be that easy to improve the strength of one's physical body? Ning Fan shook his head. It was a good thing that the ocean-defying sword's power and weight had increased tremendously. He should not be dissatisfied with it. As such, after Ning Fan finished forging the ocean-defying sword, he began to refine innate magic treasures and cultivate the 10 billion rain spirit clone. As for the 10 lions and 10 elephants pill, Ning Fan threw it to a corner and did not pay much attention to it. After a few more months, Ning Fan successfully cultivated the 10 billion rain spirit clone. Only then did he consume the 10 lions and 10 elephants pill with the thought that it was better than nothing. He really did not have high expectations for this pill. However, reality played a joke on him. The Tao fruit of the water sovereign realm that he was looking forward to did not appear. The 10 lions and 10 elephants pill that he neglected gave him an unexpected surprise. After consuming this pill, Ning Fan's physical defense did not improve but his strength skyrocketed, more than doubling. This greatly surprised Ning Fan. One should know that his current physical body was already stronger than most of the immortal emperors. With such a strong foundation, it could actually double his strength. This 10 lions and 10 elephants pill was a little incredible. It was clearly just a half-completed pill. How could it be so heaven-defying? If it was so heaven-defying, why didn't the 8 disciples of the water sect eat it in the past? Instead, they sealed it and kept it. Ning Fan could not figure it out. Of course, he did not know that this 10 lions and 10 elephants pill was not something that belonged to the illusory world. Instead, it was a pill that had drifted to the illusory world from the true world. Even though it was just a half-completed pill, that pill refinement master had used the lives of 10 half-sage Saint Realm lion demons and 10 half-sage Saint Realm elephant demons to concoct this pill. The reason why it was only a half-completed pill was not because that pill refinement master was not capable enough. Instead, it was because the true 10 lions and 10 elephants pill could not be concocted using half-Saint Realm materials. Instead, it needed half-Saint Realm materials. Even though that pill refinement master had superb pill concoction techniques, he was just a first-level half-saint. Naturally, he did not have the ability to hunt 20 half-saints to concoct the pill. Thus, this pill could only be a half-completed pill. However, it still had an extremely heaven-defying medicinal effect. The 8 disciples of the water sect obtained this pill by chance and were shocked by it. It was not that they did not want to eat it but they did not dare to. This pill could greatly increase the strength of a cultivator's physical body. However, the process of increasing one's strength was extremely dangerous. If one's physical body was not strong enough, not only would they not be able to obtain any benefits from the pill, but their bodies would also directly explode due to the medicinal effect. It was extremely dangerous. Even though the 8 disciples of the water sect possessed great abilities, they were not experts in body refinement. Their physical bodies were not as strong as Ning Fan's. Thus, they naturally did not dare to consume this pill. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was different. Not only did he have a strong physical body, but his recovery rate was also very high. Thus, he did not feel much danger when he consumed this pill. However, he could not understand why the 8 disciples of the water sect did not consume this pill. In short, this pill allowed Ning Fan's strength to skyrocket. It was a good thing. After his strength had doubled, Ning Fan was pleased to find that he could use the sea-calming divine needle with ease. Besides, it was no longer difficult to wield the ocean-defying sword that had increased in weight to 18 stars, everything was developing in a good direction. In his spare time, Ning Fan wanted to continue cultivating the Langya Heavenly Hook Jade. Unfortunately, without Aphrodite's tears, his cultivation progress was extremely slow. He could not help but miss the days when Aphrodite was by his side. Of course, this kind of nostalgia had nothing to do with love. What Ning Fan missed was the large amount of tears of the mermaid. Unfortunately, this lady has given me some guidance. Even if she is still here, I can't go against my principles to bully her and seize the tears of the mermaid. Speaking of which, what exactly is the mysterious seed that was nurtured in my primordial spirit that day? With this seed in my body, the samsara power in my body is increasing day by day. It has actually reached the point where I can condense a ring. Ning Fan activated the samsara power in his body and a purplish-golden ring appeared on his fingertip. The sun of samsara in his body would slowly grow along with his daily cultivation. Currently, the amount of samsara power he had was only the size of a ring. According to Ning Fan's estimation, if he cultivates for another few thousand years, his samsara power would probably be enough to condense a halo the size of a bracelet. If he cultivates for a few 100,000 years, he would probably be able to condense a halo the size of a headband. According to the current growth rate, he might even be able to condense a gigantic halo the size of the sacred beginning halo after cultivating for a few 100 million years. Of course, he was too lazy to wait for a few 100 million years to cultivate a mere sacred beginning halo. Too many things could be done in a few 100 million years. Even though the mysterious seed could increase his samsara power, the speed of its growth was really too slow for Ning Fan. This was really better than nothing. Ding ding ding. Before Ning Fan entered the profound Yin world for his seclusion, the sound-transmitting jade talisman given to him by Divine Space Emperor and the others suddenly emitted a faint sound. Ning Fan frowned slightly. He knew that it was Divine Space Emperor and the others who were outside contacting him. Before he went into seclusion, he had told the others not to disturb him. Since the other party took the initiative to contact him, something must have happened in the Myriad Saints Pass. It seems like there's some important military news. Ning Fan stopped his seclusion and sent out a series of hand seals towards the sound-transmitting jade talisman. Divine Space Emperor's anxious voice immediately came from the jade talisman, confirming Ning Fan's guess. This is bad. This is bad. Brother Ning, don't go into seclusion anymore. A great disaster is upon you. The foreign races have actually sent 2 half-step saints to attack my Myriad Saints Pass. One of them is the famous Myriad Saint Dragon King of the 9th Path, while the other one is a real ancient devil. Chapter 1142. There are actually 2 half-step saints here and one of them is an ancient devil. Could it be the ancient devil that reappeared along with the Devil Conferral Summit? After hearing his words, Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. Without any hesitation, he immediately flew out of the profound Yin world. Outside the Myriad Saints Pass, towering waves towered to the sky. Among the wolves, millions of non-humankind beasts had been attacking the defensive formation of the 10,000 Saints Pass fearlessly. As soon as the foreign race experts in front were killed by the formation light, the foreign race experts in the back quickly took their place. These low-level foreign tribes were natural warriors, they had no fear of death in their hearts. The blood of the dead dyed the Myriad Saints Pass River red, but none of the low-level foreign tribes retreated. There were also 12 immortal emperors occupying different directions of the Myriad Saints Pass, working together to cast the crepe myrtle divine art to assist in breaking the array. Of these 12 immortal emperors, 9 were from the 9th Path, while the other 3 were the Eastern Sky's traitorous emperors. It was still daytime, but under the joint effort of the 12 emperors, the entire Eminent Saints Pass was shrouded in an abnormal darkness. In the night sky, countless myrtle stars formed by magical power hung high in the sky. As the 12 emperors joined hands to cast the spell, the great stars of Z-Wei turned into a purple meteor shower that smashed down toward the 10,000 Saints Pass. The falling stars were like the end of the world. This was an ancient formation-breaking technique passed down from the Z-Wei celestial domain. It could gather the energy of many celestial emperors to form a meteor shower to shatter the formation, and it was extremely formidable. Although the Myriad Saints Pass array was powerful, under the combined attack of the 12 immortal emperors, countless cracks soon appeared on it. Crack, 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 those cracks were like a spider web, constantly increasing. Finally, there was a place where the array formation was completely broken, revealing a gap that was several zhang wide. Perhaps not long ago, the third waterway was successfully recovered by the Eastern Sky cultivators, which stimulated these strange race powerhouses. The invasion of the foreign races this time was more ferocious than any of the previous ones, and they were willing to disregard everything. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, a hole had been opened in the 10,000 Saints Pass Grand Array. Not good. The array formation had actually cracked. Quickly fill up the gap. Don't let the outsiders get inside the formation. Some Eastern Sky cultivators were greatly alarmed, and immediately separated several dozen people to block the gap and restore the array formation. After sacrificing more than 10 lives, the Eastern Sky cultivators were barely able to kill the several strange race beasts that had rushed into the array light, blocking the gap in the array formation. However, not long after, 2 more spell formations were breached by the outsiders. The Eastern Sky cultivators hurriedly repaired the array, exterminating the strange race giant beasts that rushed inside the array. In less than 100 breaths of time, there were already several hundred Eastern Sky cultivators that had fallen. What was even worse was that a foreign race's heavenly emperor took the opportunity to rush inside the array formation before the Eastern Sky cultivators could repair a gap. Alone, he killed his way into the 10,000 Saints Pass. Roar! It was a half-human, half-insect outsider immortal emperor. His upper body was human, and his lower body was that of a water reptile. He came from the 9th Path's water demon race, and his cultivation base was at the Eternal 6 Tribulations. Before the Eminent Saints Pass Grand Array was completely breached, recklessly rushing inside the Grand Array was a very dangerous thing to do. However, this celestial emperor of the Aquatic Serpent clan wasn't afraid of this little bit of risk, because he simply didn't put the Eastern Sky cultivators in his eyes. Among the cultivators guarding the pass, there didn't seem to be the rumored white-robed king of hell. Thus, why did he need to be careful? He could directly rush inside and start a massacre, wouldn't that be even more delightful? After the celestial emperor of the Aquatic Serpent clan entered the pass, he immediately started a massacre, and immediately a large number of Eastern Sky cultivators were killed by him. Seeing this foreign race celestial emperor actually daring enough to directly rush into the array formation, among the Eastern Sky cultivators, Minghe Boy, who also had an Eternal 6 Tribulations cultivation base, flashed and blocked in front of the celestial emperor of the Aquatic Serpent clan. He turned his hand and threw out a handful of rotten silver sand, attacking the celestial emperor. That rotten silver sand emitted a pre-celestial aura, and it seemed to be a low-grade pre-celestial magic weapon. Once it was thrown out, it immediately turned into a burst of silver demon wind that swept toward the celestial emperor of the Aquatic Serpent clan. The Water Serpent clan's celestial emperor was killing to his heart's content. Relying on his strength, he simply didn't care about Minghe Boy's attack and was directly hit by that silver demon wind. That silver demon wind was actually quite fierce. Once it hit the celestial emperor of the Aquatic Serpent clan, it immediately froze him, turning him into a giant ice man. Seeing that he had subdued the enemy celestial emperor with one move, Minghe Boy was quite proud. He thought that the opponent was only a so-so, daring to directly rush into the enemy's formation with just this little ability. But in the next moment, Minghe Boy couldn't laugh anymore. He saw that on the giant ice, there were suddenly dense cracks. The celestial emperor of the Aquatic Serpent clan had actually broken the giant ice and escaped from the ice completely by relying on his physical strength. Minghe Boy was shocked, and he once again threw out the rotten silver sand, which turned into a silver demon wind that swept toward the enemy. The celestial emperor of the Aquatic Serpent clan snorted disdainfully, and 2 purple rays shot out from his eyes. With a sweep of the purple rays, Minghe Boy's silver demon wind suddenly vanished like smoke in thin air. The magic weapon returned to its original form of the rotten silver sand, and it fell from the sky, its power greatly reduced. No matter how Minghe Boy urged it, the rotten silver sand was unexpectedly unable to be used in a short period of time. This is the lost treasure divine light from the ancient times. You actually cultivated a trace of it. Minghe Boy's expression changed greatly. The opponent had this kind of ability, and his rotten silver sand couldn't be used. Although you're an Eastern Sky ant, your eyesight isn't bad, but it's a pity that your ability is a bit weak. The celestial emperor of the Aquatic Serpent clan sneered, and with his strong physical body, he brazenly rammed toward Minghe Boy. Minghe Boy's innate magic treasure was knocked down by the opponent's divine power, and he lost almost 90% of his strength. How could he be a match for the opponent? In less than 100 rounds, he was seriously injured by the celestial emperor of the Aquatic Serpent clan. Fellow Taoist Minghe, let me help you. Seeing that Minghe Boy was in a disadvantageous situation, the 7th Tribulation celestial emperor of the Red Camel Emperor immediately turned into a blood-colored light and rushed to help. But halfway, the blood-colored light was intercepted by another alien race Celestial Emperor. Another alien race Celestial Emperor rushed into the array and invaded the interior of the 10,000 Saints Pass. This was a 7th Tribulation Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan. There wasn't a trace of flesh on his body, and his body was completely made of crystal sand, like a human-shaped sand monster. Scarlet Divine Spear. Seeing another alien race Celestial Emperor invading the 10,000 Saints Pass, the Red Camel Emperor didn't dare to hold back. He immediately took out his innate magic treasure, the Scarlet Divine Spear. The blood-colored spear radiance covered 1,000 miles, and the spear pierced toward the Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan. The Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan only sneered at the incoming spear. He didn't dodge and let the spear penetrate his body. "Humph. You didn't dodge and took my spear head-on. What a fool." The Red Camel Emperor sneered. His Scarlet Divine Spear was an evil magic treasure. Its attack power wasn't as strong as a low-grade innate magic treasure, but it was attached to a precious spirit iron called the Blood Curse. It was very dangerous to be stabbed by the Scarlet Divine Spear. As long as the enemy's blood was drunk by the Scarlet Divine Spear, they would be cursed by the spear, and half of their cultivation would be sealed. At the same time, the Red Camel Emperor could vaguely sense that the Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan was slightly stronger than him. He might not be a match for this person in a head-on battle. But if the opponent was hit by the Scarlet Divine Spear Blood Curse, and half of his cultivation would be sealed, then it would be a different story. Your cultivation is sealed, so you're no longer a match for me. Die. The Red Camel Emperor waved his spear and stabbed at the Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan again. The Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan had a look of disdain on his face. His cultivation wasn't sealed by the Scarlet Divine Spear at all, because there was no such thing as blood in his body structure, so it was impossible for him to be cursed by the Scarlet Divine Spear. You have some ability, but it's not enough. Sand Chaos Monk True Body. This time, the Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan didn't take the spear attack head-on. Instead, he transformed into his primordial true body and became a sand monk that was hundreds of feet tall. 108 sand beads flew out, and with just one strike, the Red Camel Emperor was blown away while coughing out blood. His face turned pale with fright. This guy's primordial true body is so powerful. Only an 8 Tribulation Celestial Emperor can take it down. After a few more rounds, the Red Camel Emperor was already covered in wounds and was covered in blood. He couldn't even take care of himself, let alone help Ming He Boy. Fellow Daoist Su Kong, fellow Daoist Shin Kong, quickly help me. The Red Camel Emperor had no choice but to call for help. Unfortunately, when he called for help, he discovered that the two great emperors, Su Kong and Shin Kong, were in a more dangerous situation than him. The two of them were actually surrounded by several foreign race great emperors. At this moment, more foreign race immortal emperors directly entered the 10,000 Saints Pass. Even the 3 traitors, Maha, Dongling, and Ghost Flower, also entered the 10,000 Saints Pass and joined the team that besieged the two great emperors. The two great emperors of the Divine Void were considered experts in the Eastern Sky, but facing the siege of several times their number of immortal emperors, how could they be a match for the other side? They couldn't even protect themselves. It was a pity that there were only 4 immortal emperors in the 9th road of the 10,000 Saints Pass. Once the 4 immortal emperors were stalled by the enemy, the rest of the Eastern Sky cultivators immediately suffered. More and more Eastern Sky cultivators were torn to pieces by the foreign race powerhouses that poured into the 10,000 Saints Pass. Even immortal kings and immortal venerables like Lu Feng and Yun Lei were surrounded by a large number of foreign race immortal kings and immortal venerables. In the distance, the 2 half-step saints, Myriad Saint Dragon King and Daoist Xianwei, were guarding outside the 10,000 Saints Pass. They did not even bother to take action. Weak. Too weak. The military strength of the Eastern Sky cultivators in the 10,000 Saints Pass was too weak. There was no need for them to take action at all. Originally, They thought that Ning Fan had already rushed to the 9th road of the 10,000 Saints Pass. That was why they had planned for a long time and prepared many backup plans before attacking the 10,000 Saints Pass. However, it seemed like Ning Fan was not here at all. In that case, the many methods that they had prepared seemed to be useless. Humph. I paid a huge price to open the devil cavity and directly descend to the eastern heaven from the northern heaven. I came here for that little Ning Fan. Unexpectedly, he is not here. How disappointing. Daoist Xianwei said with dissatisfaction. He. That little Yen Luo probably knew that our army had sent out 2 half-step saints at once. That's why he secretly escaped. What a cunning kid. Myriad Saint Dragon King said with a smile. Humph. He can't escape. The immemorial lightning cauldron in his possession is something that my devil conferral summit wants. After this matter is over, I will go to other places to track his whereabouts. I must get that item back. Daoist Xianwei said fiercely. The immemorial lightning cauldron, huh? Speaking of which, this kid also has the ocean-stabilizing divine pillar and the fate-severing sword of the great divine priest of the eastern border river. What a pity. What a pity. If he doesn't run away, it won't be difficult for me to capture him if I join forces with you. The great merit that was already in my hands has flown away just like that. Myriad Saint Dragon King felt that it was a pity. Join forces? Is there a need for that? I alone am enough to kill that kid. Daoist Xianwei said in a conceited manner. Myriad Saint Dragon King shook his head. The ancient devil half-step saint in front of him was good in every aspect. However, he was too arrogant, which made it hard for others to get close to him. However, he did have the right to be arrogant. Even though he was just a half-step saint, he was still a famous figure in the ancient times. While Myriad Saint Dragon King was recalling Daoist Xuanwei's achievements in the ancient times, something strange happened. The battlefield of the Myriad Saints Pass, which was originally filled with deafening battle cries, suddenly became strangely quiet. Millions of experts of the foreign races suddenly felt their hair stand on end. Cold sweat dripped down their foreheads as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The immortal emperors of the foreign races who were attacking the eastern sky stopped their attacks. Each of their expressions changed greatly when they saw a figure suddenly appearing in the battlefield. It was a white-robed young man. He did not release his baleful chi, nor did he release his aura force. Just by tearing open the space of the profound Yin world and returning to the battlefield of the Myriad Saints Pass, he made all the enemies feel an immense pressure. Ning Fan had returned. As soon as he received God Emperor Shinspace's call, he immediately rushed to the outside world. He thought that the foreign races would be held back by the formation when they launched a large-scale attack. However, he did not expect that a large number of them had already forced their way into the formation. Brother Ning. You've come out from your seclusion. That's great. You're here. We will definitely be able to defend the Myriad Saints Pass. As soon as God Emperor Shinspace and the others saw Ning Fan, they were overjoyed as if they had found their backbone. White-robed Yama. Why is he here? Isn't he not in the Myriad Saints Pass? He wasn't here just now. Why did he suddenly appear out of nowhere? Those immortal venerables and immortal kings of the foreign races gasped when they saw Ning Fan. Ning Fan's notoriety was too great. They could not help but be afraid of him. The immortal venerables and immortal kings of the foreign races who were attacking LV Feng, Yunlei, and the others immediately retreated from the range of the Myriad Saints Pass formation like a receding tide. They returned to their own formation as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The immortal emperors who were attacking the eastern sky also wanted to flee. They wanted to escape from the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass immediately. They dared to attack the Void Emperor and the others while resisting the formation, but they did not dare to attack Ning Fan while being suppressed by the formation. Unfortunately, it was a little too late for them to escape from the formation now. In a flash, Ning Fan caught up to that immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan. He summoned the sea-defying sword and slashed at him. A moment ago, this immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan was still acting high and mighty, beating up Ming-He boy until he did not know which way was north. At the next moment, he was so frightened by Ning Fan that he ran away immediately. He did not even have the courage to face Ning Fan. He secretly cursed his bad luck. Why did Ning Fan only chase after him when so many immortal emperors had rushed into the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass? There is no justice in this world. Seeing how the sea-defying sword slashed down in an incomparably stunning manner, engulfing heaven and earth with its water-blue sword light, how would this immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan dare to take Ning Fan's attack head-on? Without any hesitation, he used the treasure-falling divine light in an attempt to break the power of Ning Fan's Dao weapon and save his life. Unfortunately, he had underestimated the grade of the sea-defying sword. His treasure-falling divine light had only scratched the surface. It could only fall on some weaker low-grade innate magic treasures. It could not fall on the sea-defying sword at all. In the end, this sword slashed down unstoppably. The immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan felt as if he had been struck by 18 cultivation stars. His steel skin that was as hard as star iron could not stop the sword from cutting into his body at all. Moreover, the moment the sword pierced through his body, thousands of heaven-hooking jades exploded inside his body like thousands of suns. Boom, dignified six-tribulation immortal emperor who could beat up Ming-He boy until he lost his bearings was actually blown up by Ning Fan's sword and his demon soul was taken away. Moreover, at the moment when he killed the enemy, Ning Fan's Dao seizing void technique was activated on its own. He seized a trace of the cultivation method of the treasure-falling divine light from the blood and flesh essence of the immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan. This surprised Ning Fan slightly. He did not expect that he would get a spoil of war just after killing the first immortal emperor of a foreign race. Besides, these spoils seemed to be somewhat useful. Fellow Daoist Ning actually killed the opponent that I couldn't defeat after fighting so hard. Ming-He boy was stunned. In an instant, he almost lost himself. His emotions were indescribably complicated. The Void Space Emperor, Shin Space Emperor and the Red Camel Emperor were also stunned by this scene. All the immortal emperors of the foreign races were shocked by the unparalleled might of this sword. They fled even faster. Seizing the moment when Ning Fan killed the immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan, they all escaped from the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass. If their enemies were weak, they would dare to go against the formation and kill them. However, in front of Ning Fan, they did not dare to be so arrogant. They no longer dared to stay inside the formation. Only those low-grade immortal emperors who attacked the formation did not run away. Even though they were afraid of Ning Fan's heavy pressure, they still dashed towards him without fear of death. After that, they were all killed by Ning Fan. These low-grade immortal emperors could not harm Ning Fan at all. In just a few breaths, there was no longer a single enemy invading the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass. This is the white-robed Yama. He can actually kill an immortal emperor with a single sword. Even I can't do this. Myriad Saint Dragon King felt a chill run down his spine. The way he looked at Ning Fan was as if he was looking at a monster. Daoist Xian Wei, on the other hand, burst into laughter. His battle intent was high. As an ancient devil, he was never afraid of fighting a strong enemy. Xian Wei knew that he would also not be able to achieve Ning Fan's incomparably stunning sword attack without using his poison technique. If he still looked down on Ning Fan before this, all of his disdain towards Ning Fan had turned into respect at this moment. That's how it should be. Only by being this strong will it be interesting. Only then will this young man be worthy of being hunted. Not good. The white-robed Yama is leaving the formation alone with his sword. He actually gave up the protection of the formation. He actually took the initiative to leave the range of the formation. Does he really want to fight against our army of millions of troops alone? Even though we have lost one of our immortal emperors, we still have 11 immortal emperors and 2 half-step saints. How arrogant! This white-robed Yama is really arrogant. Since he has walked out of the formation, let's quickly surround and kill him. All of a sudden, the members of the foreign races clamored. After Ning Fan casually refined the demon soul of the immortal sovereign of the Water Serpent clan with the divine refining cauldron, he directly chased after the other immortal emperors of the foreign races and exited the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass. The other cultivators of the Eastern Heaven did not dare to walk out of the formation recklessly in front of the army of foreign races. The reason why Ning Fan dared to do so was because he had the confidence to do so. He had annihilated more than 10 million troops of foreign races. Even though there were millions of troops of foreign races in front of him, he was not afraid of them. Even though there were many immortal emperors on the enemy's side, they were still not enough to make him fearful. Only the 2 half-step saints could make him take them seriously. But that was all. His magic power of 13,500 tribulations had surpassed all the half-step saints in the Dharma-ending era. Even though he was not a match for half-step saints, he was not afraid of mere half-step saints. Even if there was an ancient devil among the 2 half-step saints. As soon as the immortal emperors of the foreign races saw Ning Fan walking out of the formation, they immediately wanted to surround him. Ning Fan glanced around and suddenly saw an immortal emperor with wood element cultivation base among the immortal emperors of the foreign races. He seemed to be the leader of the encirclement. He immediately sneered and directly dashed towards that immortal emperor with wood element. That was an 8 tribulation immortal emperor. His strength was much stronger than the Void Emperor and the other 8 tribulations of the Eastern Heaven. However, as long as his opponent had the wood element cultivation base, he would definitely not be a match for him. Let's join forces and kill this monster with the falling stars. The immortal emperor of the divine algae clan who had the wood element cultivation base gritted his teeth and gave an order. His killing intent was fully unleashed. Ning Fan certainly gave him a heavy sense of pressure. However, in his opinion, if he is the center and the power of all the immortal emperors combined, he would be able to severely injure Ning Fan even if he could not kill him. When he thought of killing Ning Fan and obtaining the opportunity to receive the quasi-saint empowerment from the fallen great divine priest, the blood of the immortal emperor of the divine algae clan began to boil and he could not suppress his excitement. Chapter 1143. There will definitely be brave men in the face of great rewards. The 8th tribulation immortal emperor of the divine algae clan forcefully suppressed his fear towards Ning Fan. His eternal true body with 3 heads and 8 arms changed his hand seals. At this moment, the power of the other 10 immortal emperors followed the ancient formation power of the crepe myrtle star formation and gathered on his body. A massive aura force spread out from his body. At this moment, he no longer looked like an 8th tribulation immortal emperor but a half-step saint who was strengthened by the crepe myrtle star formation. This white-robed Yama can tell that I'm the key to this crepe myrtle star formation. That's why he wants to kill me first to break the formation. What he did was right and wrong at the same time. His method is right but he has underestimated me. Since I'm the key to this formation, I can control most of its power. It won't be easy for him to kill me. Fellow Taoists, increase the output of your magic power. I'm going to use the Supreme Crepe Myrtle Star technique to kill this bastard. The immortal emperor of the divine algae clan suddenly shouted. His voice sounded like the devil-breaking roar of an arhat subduing a devil or a bodhisattva's graceful Sanskrit chant to save people. As soon as he shouted, more crepe myrtle star formation fell from the sky like a meteor shower. However, they were no longer attacking the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass. Instead, they were heading towards Ning Fan. The power of the falling stars was not any weaker than a full-powered attack of a half-step quasi-saint realm expert. The meteor shower was like a formation, blocking the path between Ning Fan and the immortal emperor of the divine algae clan. If Ning Fan continues to move forward, he would certainly collide with the attack of the countless stars. Ning Fan, however, did not try to avoid the attack. Instead, he continued to rush towards the immortal emperor of the divine algae clan with the same momentum. Finally, on the way, it collided with the attack of the meteor shower of thousands of large stars. Rumble. Rumble. Rumble.an earth-shattering collision sound reverberated. Purple starlight instantly engulfed the entire battlefield of the Myriad Saints Pass. No one could open their eyes in the intense starlight. Even powerful beings like Daoist Xianwei and myriad Saint Dragon King covered their eyes, not daring to look at the starlight directly. Is he dead? This white-robed Yama was hit by so many stars head-on. He should be dead, right? The immortal emperor of the divine algae clan could not hide the excitement in his heart. If he really kills Ning Fan, the chance of receiving the quasi-saint's empowerment would really fall into his hands. With such a fierce attack, even if that white-robed Yama doesn't die, he will definitely be heavily injured. The various immortal emperors of the foreign races and the Eastern Sky traitorous emperor thought to themselves. After a long time, the dazzling crepe myrtle starlight dispersed. As the starlight faded, a scene that left all the outsiders disappointed appeared before everyone's eyes. Ning Fan is still alive. Not only did he not die, he did not even suffer a single injury. At the moment when Ning Fan collided with the myriad of large stars, he activated his eternal true body and the cross-shaped light ring. He wielded the ocean-defying sword and slashed out 100 times consecutively, shattering all of the large stars in Z-Way. Even though Ning Fan's strength had doubled after consuming the 10 lions and 10 elephants pill, who would want the upgraded sea-defying sword to be so heavy? As a matter of fact, it was not easy for him to slash out 100 swords consecutively in an instant. He had to admit that the power of the falling stars released by the 11 immortal emperors was indeed extraordinary. It actually forced him to slash out 100 swords consecutively. It was worthy of praise. Unfortunately, it was still not enough to take his life with just this. The moment Ning Fan destroyed the group of stars, his body flashed and appeared in front of the divine algae clan's immortal emperor. Without saying a word, he swung the ocean-defying sword at his head. Ning Fan knew very well that this person was the key to the formation. As long as he kills him, the enemy would not be able to use a tricky attack like the falling stars. Just a moment ago, the divine algae clan's immortal emperor was still obtaining a great merit. Then, he was stunned by Ning Fan, who suddenly got close to him. No one expected that Ning Fan could easily destroy all the large stars and even seize the opportunity to get close to the divine algae clan's immortal emperor. Because it was unexpected, no one could save him in time. The divine algae clan could only rely on the divine algae clan's immortal emperor to block this unpredictable sword attack. At this moment, the first round of the falling stars had just ended. The second round of attacks would take some time to brew. The aura force of the divine algae clan's half-step saint realm had already fallen back to the 8 tribulations realm. He did not know if he could block Ning Fan's attack with his current cultivation base. He only knew that if he could not, he would end up like the immortal emperor of the water serpent clan. Blood ignition. The bloodline of his ancestors was ignited by the divine algae clan. As the bloodline of his ancient true body was ignited, the shadow of an innate magic treasure appeared in each of its palms. They were not real innate magic treasures but illusions created by magic techniques. They could only launch one attack and they would disperse in one strike. These innate magic treasures were all low-grade grass magic treasures. There were water grass divine swords and divine wood small cauldrons among them. They were of different types and each of them had unpredictable power. It was a life-saving technique that the divine algae clan's progenitor left behind for his descendants. It could only be activated by igniting his bloodline. It must not be used unless it is absolutely necessary. In the face of certain death, the divine algae clan's immortal emperor activated this ability. The 8 illusory innate magic treasures in his hands were all struck at Ning Fan's ghostly sword attack. In an instant, the water blue sword light collided with the green light of the 8 innate magic treasures. All the experts of the foreign races were stunned by the life-saving technique of the divine algae clan's immortal emperor. Everyone knew how destructive the power of the 8 innate magic treasures was when they attacked at the same time. No one thought that Ning Fan's sword attack could break through the 8 innate magic treasures. However, the scene that happened next was incomprehensible and unbelievable to them. As soon as those innate magic treasures collided with Ning Fan's ocean-defying sword light, they withered and shattered one after another. It was just too unbelievable. It looked like Ning Fan had directly drained all of the wood power of those 8 innate magic treasures. Then, the unstoppable water-blue sword light no longer had any obstacles in its way. It struck the immortal emperor of the divine algae clan's ancient true body. The weight of 18 stars pressed against the sharp edge of the ocean-defying sword. It easily broke the armor of the divine algae clan's immortal emperor and penetrated his body. The moment the sword penetrated his body, the immortal emperor of the divine algae clan felt that his cultivation base was being suppressed by a tremendous power of the Palm realm. He could not even escape with his demon soul. His demon soul was sealed inside his body by a tremendous power of the Palm realm. Thousands of heavenly gujads exploded like thousands of suns. Bang! With just a single sword attack, the true body of the divine algae clan's immortal emperor was shattered and his demon soul was captured. Ning Fan killing a 6 tribulation immortal emperor with a single sword attack was already very shocking. Now that he killed an 8 tribulation immortal emperor with a single sword attack, all the experts of the foreign races were speechless. Killing an 8 tribulation immortal emperor instantly? Is this something that a cultivator from the Dharma ending era can do? Even a true quasi-saint realm expert would not be able to do this. An 8 tribulation immortal emperor was not an ant. Even if they were to face a quasi-saint realm expert, they would still be able to resist for a while. How could they be killed by a single sword attack? The Void Space Emperor, Divine Space Emperor and the Crimson Camel Emperor forgot to cheer for Ning Fan's stunning sword attack. Their situation was somewhat similar to Ming He Child. At this moment, they were shocked by Ning Fan's strength which far surpassed the Dharma ending era and began to doubt themselves. After all, none of them were as powerful as the divine algae race's immortal emperor. Since Ning Fan could instantly kill an immortal emperor of the divine algae clan, he was no longer on the same level as them. With such strength, how would they dare to address him as fellow Taoist in the future? They could only address him as senior. Killing an 8 tribulations with one strike. This was impossible. This is impossible. The ones who were deeply affected by Ning Fan's sword strike were not only the Void Emperor and the others but also the great sovereigns of the foreign races. As immortal emperors, which one of them wasn't proud and arrogant? Which one of them didn't believe that they were standing at the peak of the age of chaos? The 8th tribulation was only one tribulation less than the 9th tribulation. It was almost the pinnacle existence among the immortal emperors. However, an immortal emperor who was a peak existence like him was actually killed by Ning Fan with a single sword strike. Is the immortal emperor realm really worthy of pride? Is it really worthy of pride? As immortal emperors, it had been many years since they felt the boundless great Tao. They were complacent and self-satisfied. They thought they were already standing at the peak of the Tao mountain. However, Ning Fan made them feel that the Tao mountain was unreachable and insurmountable. No, that's not right. The reason why this old monster Yen Luo could kill an 8 tribulation immortal emperor with a single sword strike was because he used a trick. He didn't really do it. He used the power of the sovereign realm. It's the sovereign realm. He's the real sovereign realm. He has the wood sovereign realm. He's the sovereign immortal king. I can't believe there's still a sovereign immortal king in the age of chaos. No wonder fellow Taoist divine algae was killed by this devil with a single sword strike. It's because of the sovereign realm's restraint. If it's another 8 tribulation immortal emperor, he probably wouldn't be in such a sorry state. This devil isn't invincible. He can't really fight a quasi-sage realm expert. However, his identity as a sovereign immortal king is already enough to shock the world. There are only a few sovereign immortal kings in the age of chaos and all of them are existences above the immortal emperor realm. This young man can actually become a sovereign immortal king as an immortal king. Gradually, someone revealed the fact that Ning Fan was a sovereign immortal king. Their voices became even more shocked. However, the content of their shock shifted from Ning Fan killing an 8 tribulation immortal emperor to his identity as a sovereign immortal king. The divine refining cauldron followed behind Ning Fan on its own as if it had a spirit of its own. It was waiting for Ning Fan to throw the newly captured demon soul of the divine algae emperor into it. Ning Fan could sense the divine refining cauldron's desire. He threw the demon soul of the divine algae emperor into it, allowing the cauldron to refine it to death and turn it into his 10,000 spirit blood. His gaze swept over the foreign tribe's army. They had clearly walked out of the Eminent Saints Pass protective array formation, had clearly stepped into the encirclement of the foreign tribe's army, but there was no trace of fear. Killing the divine Wheat Immortal Emperor did not make him feel proud at all. After all, he had used a trick and killed too many immortal emperors. He was already numb to it. What surprised him was that even though he had been surrounded by the alien army and had even killed an 8th Tribulation Immortal Emperor in an instant, the 2 half-sages of the alien race were still sitting calmly in the middle of the army and didn't join in the siege. This was illogical. Only 2 half-sages and 10 immortal emperors working together would have the highest chance of killing him. Why aren't the 2 half-saints attacking? Was he confident that he could destroy him with just the immortal emperors under him? Or was he too conceited to participate in the siege? Or was he plotting something else? Ning Fan did not know why the 2 half-sages of the alien race were still sitting in the middle of the army. However, it should be a good thing for him. In that case, he could hunt down the enemy's immortal emperors with even more ease. Without the half-saints attacking him, the remaining 10 immortal emperors on the enemy's side who had lost the key to the formation were completely useless. Kill. The few immortal emperors of the alien race suddenly mustered up their courage and joined hands to attack him. At the same time, there were also tens of immortal venerables and immortal kings attacking him. Ning Fan's true form wielded the ocean-defying sword and made several slashes. The few immortal emperors of the alien race were sent flying while coughing out blood. As for those immortal venerables and immortal kings, all of them died. Under the slashes, they turned into a rain of blood. He already had 13,500 tribulations worth of magic power. In the future, he would have even more magic power. He was no longer the same as before. When he was surrounded by immortal emperors, he had to use tricks to defeat them. He already had the strength to face the attacks of immortal emperors head-on. At this moment, he was a wolf while the enemy army was a flock of sheep. Kill. After the first wave of immortal emperors was repelled, the other immortal emperors joined hands to attack him. Among them, the traitorous immortal emperor Dong Ling was also among them. Ning Fan made a few slashes and repelled several immortal emperors of the alien race. He also killed tens of immortal venerables and immortal kings. At the same time, Dong Ling immortal emperor Dong Ling was forced to retreat. However, this time, Ning Fan did not stop after repelling Dong Ling immortal emperor Dong Ling. Instead, his figure flashed and he instantly caught up to him. Then, he delivered another slash at Dong Ling immortal emperor who was sent flying. Dong Ling immortal emperor Dong Ling's cultivation base was just at the 7th Tribulation realm. How could he withstand Ning Fan's sword attack? Once again, he was sent flying by Ning Fan and his injuries became even more severe. Ning Fan flashed and chased after him again. He swung his sword for the 3rd time, the 4th time, the 5th time. When he reached the 7th slash, he finally killed Dong Ling immortal emperor. Dong Ling immortal emperor, on the other hand, had some life-saving abilities. He only died after blocking Ning Fan's 7 slashes. Even though it was not an instant kill and it was not as shocking as before, when this notorious traitor of the Eastern Heaven was killed, the entire Myriad Saints Pass was still filled with cheers. There were also some cultivators who cried tears of joy. These people who were crying were basically the disciples of Great Emperor Tai Li who was ambushed and killed by the alien race because of Dong Ling's betrayal. Now that Ning Fan killed Dong Ling, it was no different from avenging their sect for them. Naturally, they were grateful to him. Dong Ling immortal emperor had betrayed the Eastern Heaven during the tens of years that Ning Fan was in seclusion. Ning Fan did not know why Dong Ling immortal emperor betrayed the Eastern Heaven and he was not concerned about the whole story. He only knew that Dong Ling immortal emperor was a traitor who had betrayed the oath that was made during the alliance meeting. It was enough for him to be attacked by all the experts. After using the ocean-defying sword excessively, Ning Fan's true body was slightly panting. He seemed to be rather exhausted. Seeing this, The few immortal emperors of the foreign races returned and attacked Ning Fan in an airtight manner. They did not intend to give Ning Fan any time to rest. Even though old devil Yen Luo's Dao weapon is powerful, it seems to be too heavy. He has already begun to pant. It's probably because he has exhausted too much of his strength. We can't give him any time to rest. This was the unanimous opinion of the immortal emperors of the alien race. Ning Fan was also aware that he had used a little too much strength in wielding the ocean-defying sword continuously. He kept the ocean-defying sword and no longer used it. Instead, he summoned the Seven Treasures Wondrous Tree. With a few swishing sounds, he sent the few immortal emperors who were attacking him flying. Then, he opened his mouth and breathed out a bolt of flame lightning, burning a large number of the alien race into ashes. Ning Fan also summoned the Sun Moon Star Steel and the Fate-Severing Sword 3 times consecutively, killing everyone in his way and causing the army of the alien race to bleed like a river. Ning Fan did not have the sea-calming divine needle because it required more strength than the ocean-defying sword. However, in terms of destructive power, it was much stronger than the ocean-defying sword. Thus, he could keep it as a trump card. Sob. Master, little infant is wrong. Little infant has reflected on his mistakes. Let little infant join the battle as well. Let little infant make some contributions for master. Suddenly, a voice was transmitted to Ning Fan's mind through the spiritual connection. Ning Fan was surprised. It was really unbelievable that this thing would take the initiative to ask to join the battle. Ever since this thing was subdued by him, it had never taken the initiative to ask to join the battle. It had been refusing to cooperate with him without violence. No matter how he forced it, it refused to work for him. Did the sun rise from the west today? This thing is actually willing to fight for me. The thing that took the initiative to ask to join the battle was none other than the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant that Ning Fan had subdued while helping Luo Ho block the tribulation in the past. Ning Fan had already experienced the power of this item on that day. If this item is used with the Tai Su lightning diagram and his innate mid-grade flame lightning flame, it would become a truly powerful killing weapon. Its destructive power was much more than the sea-calming divine needle. Are you really willing to submit to me? Ning Fan asked the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant through the spiritual connection as if he was doubtful. Yes, Master. Little infant has already been beaten by Big Sister Black Devil. Convinced. Big Sister Black Devil. You're right. In front of an existence like Master, the heavenly Dao spirits of the Dao Hun clan are nothing. We don't have the right to be arrogant, and it's not shameful to be a slave. If Jiu Li, who is ranked 4th in the Dao Soul Realm, can be a slave, then the ancestral Lightning Sparrow, who is ranked within the top 400, why can't I, the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant, who is ranked 95th in the Dao Soul Realm, become a slave? Little infant has thought it through. I don't want to be beaten anymore. I'm willing to be Master's slave. Master, please control Big Sister Black Devil. Don't let her beat me anymore. I'm begging you, my good master. The Dao Extermination Lightning Infant pleaded. Ning Fan smiled after hearing what it said. He finally understood that this Dao Extermination Lightning Infant was afraid of being beaten by Black Devil. That was why it submitted to him. This time, Ning Fan did not bring any followers with him to the Border River meeting. However, Black Devil still strongly requested to follow him. Currently, Black Devil had found a place to stay in the profound Yin world with his quasi-emperor's spiritual puppet, He Xiaoyan. In his spare time, Black Devil would train He Xiaoyan and the primogenitor Lightning Sparrow Ke Gu every day, trying to train these two servants who were becoming more and more useless to him. Ning Fan let Black Devil do whatever he wants with regards to this matter. After all, be it the quasi-emperor's spiritual puppet or the primogenitor Lightning Sparrow Ke Gu, none of them were of any use to him anymore. It was good for them to be trained by Black Devil. If they could really achieve something from the training, it would be an unexpected gain. In the past, after Ning Fan captured the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant, he planted a slave restriction on it and tried to persuade it in every possible way. However, this infant was quite stubborn and arrogant. Ning Fan had tried his best to persuade it, but it still refused to truly submit to him. With no other choice, Ning Fan decided to seal the Tao Extermination Lightning Infant's cultivation base and put it in the profound Yin world for Black Devil to discipline. This Tao Extermination Lightning Infant was also a member of the Tao Soul clan. However, the Tao Extermination Lightning Infant clan that it belonged to could not be compared to the Nine Raccoon clan. As a member of the Nine Raccoon clan of the Royal Clan, Black Devil could summon the King's Bow to kill the other Tao Soul clan and seize the fate of his clan. To ordinary Tao Soul realm experts, he was a great threat. With her disciplining the Tao Extermination Lightning Infant, it was only natural that she would be able to convince it. Since you've decided to submit to me, I'll give you a chance to perform. There seems to be something strange about today's battle. The two half-step sovereigns on the enemy's side did not make a move at all. I suspect that they have some tricks up their sleeves. If they really have some tricks up their sleeves, I will use your power. As long as you perform well, I will persuade Black Devil to be gentler in disciplining you in the future, and I won't beat you up anymore. Thank you, Master. The Tao Extermination Lightning Infant was overjoyed upon hearing Ning Fan's words. It stopped talking and waited for Ning Fan to summon it at any time. On the battlefield, Ning Fan was still engaged in a one-sided slaughter as if there was no one around. The entire river surface was filled with floating corpses and blood. In just the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, nearly 1 million members of the foreign races had been killed by him alone. His giant golden flame body was stained with the blood of the foreign races. He was like a peerless god of war who could hold the fort against 10,000 enemies by himself. As long as the half-step sovereigns did not show up, the immortal emperors present were not his match at all. The Sand Soul clan's immortal emperor, who had a strange body structure, was burned into glass by his monstrous lightning flames. An immortal emperor of the Flying Fish clan who had 6 wings tried to sneak an attack on Ning Fan. However, he was smashed into meat paste by Ning Fan's sun, moon, and star steel. An immortal emperor of the Octopus clan sprayed ink from his mouth to attack Ning Fan. However, his head was cut off by Ning Fan's fate-severing sword. Another immortal emperor of the Golden Scaled clan was smashed into a bloody pulp by Ning Fan's ancient devil-breaking mountain. They could not stop him. The army of millions of foreign races and tens of foreign immortal emperors could not stop Ning Fan alone. Ning Fan had become the fully deserving Yama King. In the army of the foreign races, he killed people like flies, but he did not show any hesitation or mercy. His baleful chi was so terrifying that it could suffocate ordinary immortal emperors. His strength made all the experts of the foreign races look at him with surprise. Countless experts of the foreign races begged Daoist Xianwei and Dragon King Wansheng to help. However, the two half-step sovereigns only told them that the time was not right and they could not take action. They simply did not show up to stop Ning Fan's rampage. Finally, all the immortal emperors on the side of the foreign races, except for Mo He and Gue Hua who betrayed them, were all killed by Ning Fan. Somehow, as the number of immortal emperors he killed continued to increase, Ning Fan finally had a strange feeling. It was as if there was something unexpected that made him feel uneasy. Seeing that the number of casualties on the battlefield had reached a certain number, Daoist Xianwei finally could not hold it in anymore. He said to Dragon King Wansheng, "Is it still not enough? This young man is just too strong. I can't hold it anymore. I want to fight him. Don't be anxious. It will be enough after another few 100,000 soldiers die." While Daoist Wansheng was comforting Daoist Xianwei, he glared at Mo He and Gue Hua who were standing beside him. The two of them had already retreated from the battlefield and were hiding beside him. On one hand, they were afraid of death. On the other hand, it was because the two of them still had some special use. "Fellow Daoist Gue Hua, how are your preparations?" Dragon King Wansheng sent a cold voice transmission to her. He had always looked down on the traitorous emperor of the Eastern Heaven. If it wasn't because this woman still had some value to him, he would not even bother to talk nonsense with her. "Lord Wansheng, don't worry. After a large amount of blood sacrifice, the satiety of the ghost flower of the netherworld has already reached 97%. After some more blood sacrifice, it will wake up. How confident are you that we can turn this little Yama King into an undying ghost soldier? T30%, Madame Guehua said cautiously as if she was worried that Dragon King Wansheng would be dissatisfied because the probability was too low. Chapter 1144. 30%? That's too low. Fine. I'll give it a try. This man's techniques are extremely strange. If we can turn him into an undying ghost soldier and offer him to the great divine priest, you will be the one who has contributed the most. If you fail, you won't need to live anymore. Myriad Saint Dragon King snorted coldly. Madame Guehua's face instantly turned pale after hearing his words. In order to survive, she made up her mind to succeed no matter what. On the battlefield, Ning Fan was like a butterfly gliding through flowers. He dodged and leaped through the concentrated attacks of the foreign race's army. He came and went freely as if there was no one there. The immortal emperors who tried to besiege him were all killed by him. Even though there were still 2 to 3 million foreign experts attacking him, there were no immortal emperors participating in the attack. Thus, there was nothing to worry about. Immortal kings and immortal venerables of the foreign race who held high positions were killed by Ning Fan with just a raise of his hand. They did not even cause a ripple. He alone had crushed an army of millions of foreign races. The more dead foreign races there were in the surroundings, the more uneasy Ning Fan felt. At this moment, he was even more certain that Daoist Xianwei and Myriad Saint Dragon King had some kind of backup plan. Gradually, a chilly wind began to blow between the water and the sky. The corpses floating on the water surface gradually changed. Dark red plant roots began to grow out of the corpses and flesh of the foreign experts one after another. The surface of those plant roots had small thorns that looked like thorns. As their number grew, they covered the entire surface of the battlefield. At first glance, it looked like a huge patch of dark red thorns had grown on the surface of the water. The thorns seemed to be able to use the flesh and blood of the dead as nutrients to grow rapidly. The thorns in front of Ning Fan's eyes grew more and more. There were also giant flowers blooming amidst the thorns. Those giant flowers were pale in color. That kind of abnormal whiteness was like the stiff skin of the dead. There was a strange fragrance coming from those giant flowers. Even with Ning Fan's strength, he felt dizzy and shocked when he accidentally smelled that fragrance. What kind of flowers are these? Ning Fan did not recognize those giant flowers. However, he could vaguely sense that there was a trace of Madame Guehua's qi in them. She must be the one who created these giant flowers. Ning Fan did not have a deep impression of Madame Guehua. He only remembered that when he had just arrived at the border river, this woman had once impatiently invited him for a spring breeze, but he had refused. He only knew that this woman had betrayed Eastern Sky. As for the whole story of her betrayal, he didn't know the details. Madame Guehua was just a 7 tribulation immortal emperor. Logically speaking, such an existence could not threaten Ning Fan. However, the strange giant flower that Madame Guehua conjured made Ning Fan feel a trace of threat when he thought of how Profound Tail and Wansheng allowed him to go on a killing spree and how this gigantic flower could use dead people as its nutrients. Ning Fan had a guess. It seemed like Xianwei and Wansheng's trump card was these giant flowers. Seeing that the number of gigantic flowers was increasing, there was no way Ning Fan would let them continue to grow. He opened up a gap in the battlefield and breathed out a sea of flame lightning, trying to incinerate all the thorny flowers in front of him. Ever since he subdued the Tao extermination lightning nascent soul and turned it into the lightning spirit of his lightning diagram, the lightning power in his flame lightning flame had become even stronger, causing the destructive power of his flame lightning flame to be much stronger than before. It was much stronger than most of the mid-grade innate flames in the Age of Chaos ending. Ordinary plants wouldn't be able to withstand the flame thunder flame. However, these thorny flowers remained unscathed in the sea of flame as if they were not afraid of this level of flames and lightning at all. Even the mid-grade innate flame thunder flame can't hurt these flowers. Ning Fan was really surprised. He then took out the 7 treasures wondrous tree and smashed the sun moon star steel. He even used the power of his wood divine lattice, trying to directly absorb the vitality of these thorny flowers. However, the attacks of the mid-grade innate flame thunder flame could not cause any effective damage to these gigantic flowers at all. What was even more strange was that although these gigantic flowers looked like plants, they were not made of plants at all. The gigantic flowers and thorny roots were actually made of the flesh and blood of dead people. Since they were not plants, they were naturally not restricted by the wood divine lattice. This matter also surprised Ning Fan. Seeing that the number of gigantic flowers was increasing but he could not stop them, Ning Fan's eyes glowed with green light, trying to see through the details of these gigantic flowers. On the other side, Xian Wei and Wanxing sneered disdainfully when they saw Ning Fan being helpless against the ghost flowers of the netherworld. It's right that you are helpless. The famous ghost flowers of the netherworld were something that even quasi-saints would have to avoid. How could a puny Ning Fan possibly resist them? There are already hundreds of child flowers in the ghost flowers. It's about time for me to take action, right? Taoist Xian Wei said with a smile. The child flowers have already matured. The mother flower will appear soon. Let's attack together and eliminate this brat. Only then will the ghost flowers of the netherworld be able to absorb his power. Wanxing's eyes flashed with killing intent and said with a smile. Attack together? There's no need for that. I've already said that I want to eliminate this brat alone. Taoist Xian Wei said arrogantly. Even though he had already witnessed Ning Fan's strength, he still believed that he could easily eliminate Ning Fan. Wanxing frowned. He wanted to say something but hesitated. He knew Taoist Xian Wei's character. He always kept his word. This person did not want his help. If he helps him, it would only make him resent him. Ancient devils are really troublesome. They are all a bunch of battle maniacs whose brains are filled with muscles. Since that's the case, I will stay at the side and help fellow Taoist. Wanxing compromised. Very well. All of you ants, back off. I want to fight the white-robed Yama alone. The latter part of his words were directed at the remaining troops of the foreign races. After Taoist Xian Wei gave the order, he let out a long roar. His body turned into layers of devil shadows and flew out, heading straight for Ning Fan. When the troops of the foreign races saw Taoist Xian Wei personally taking action, they retreated according to his order, leaving the battlefield to Ning Fan and Xian Wei. They obviously have two half-step saints but they only sent one of them to fight me. Why is that? Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. His giant body of golden flames stared coldly at Taoist Xian Wei. He was used to seeing the schemes of cultivators. He did not believe that the other party would fight him fair and square when he had the upper hand. The other party had two half-step saints but they only sent one of them to fight him. This was the first point of doubt. The other party had spent a lot of effort to summon countless strange giant flowers. However, those giant flowers only grew on their own and did not attack him at all. This was the second point of doubt. Sometimes, smart people would go to a dead end. Ning Fan was currently in such a situation. All of a sudden, Ning Fan seemed to have understood something. He could see the strong conceit and disdain in Taoist Xian Wei's eyes. The other party might have a scheme by summoning the giant flowers. However, there was no scheme in sending only one half-step saint to fight him. It was just because he looked down on him. The ancient devil half-step saint in front of him was looking down on him from the start. Even though he had displayed a lot of strength earlier, it was still not worth mentioning in his eyes. I am Xian Wei. Young man, I heard from my brother Baizu that you are also an ancient devil. Taoist Xian Wei's face was filled with disdain and he burst into laughter. Since you are the descendant of ancient chaos, it's not surprising that you can cultivate to the level of an ancient devil in the age of Dharma ending. Unfortunately, you don't know that there are also nobles and lowly ones among the ancient devils. I was born in the ancient devil world of the true world. Be it my noble identity or the lost abilities of the ancient devils, none of them are comparable to a lowly ancient devil like you. In my opinion, an ancient devil of the age of Dharma ending like you is not even worth a fart. This old man can kill you with just one finger. If I use 2 fingers, I will admit defeat. Arrogance. How arrogant. Daoist Xian Wei raised a finger and shook it at Ning Fan. His disdainful attitude was as if he was looking down at the lowliest ant. To the cultivators of other races, being arrogant and underestimating their enemy despite being a half-step saint was definitely an idiot. However, ancient devils were different. Ancient devils were born to be berserkers. The more arrogant they were, and the more they looked down on the world, the stronger their combat power would be. Dragon King Wansheng was definitely not joking when he said that the brains of ancient devils are all muscles. Only those ancient devils whose brains were filled with muscles would still choose to fight Ning Fan one-on-one even when they had the upper hand. Ning Fan frowned. However, he was not angered by Daoist Xian Wei's disdainful words. What kind of mentality did he have? Even though he was an ancient devil and he was also arrogant, he would never show it on the surface. Instead, he would express it with his actions. His gigantic body of golden flames swayed slightly and disappeared from his original spot. He wanted to attack Daoist Xian Wei with the ancient devil mountain breaking strike first. Seeing Ning Fan disappear, Daoist Xian Wei laughed and disappeared as well. At the next moment, somewhere in the empty sky, the hollow space suddenly shattered. 2 human figures fell from the sky. Daoist Xian Wei fell out of the hollow space. His actions were relatively calm. He still maintained the posture of raising his index finger. However, that finger of his was slightly red and swollen, as if it was injured by a tremendous force. His facial expression was slightly unpleasant. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was in a slightly worse state. He was sent flying by Daoist Xian Wei's finger during the first encounter. Daoist Xian Wei was not boasting. Even though he only used a finger, the power of that finger was much stronger than the punch of many doomsday quasi-saints. This man's physical body is actually this terrifying. Is this the strength of an ancient devil who has lived since ancient times until today? Ning Fan was unwilling to admit it, but he had to. Even though he had consumed the 10 lions 10 elephants pill, he was still a few levels weaker than Daoist Xian Wei in terms of physical strength. He admitted the existence of such a difference in strength. However, it did not mean that he was willing to admit that he could not even defeat Daoist Xian Wei who only used a finger. At this moment, he clearly had more options to choose from. He could use the ocean-defying sword, the 7 treasures wondrous tree, the sun moon star steel, the fate-severing sword, the flame-lightning fire, the sea-calming divine needle. However, he did not want to use any of them. His opponent was an ancient devil and Ning Fan was also an ancient devil. The pride of an ancient devil would not allow Ning Fan to evade a direct challenge from an ancient devil. He must defeat his opponent with strength and fight back head-on. Only those who counter strength with strength are worthy of being called ancient devils. If the strength of one punch is weaker than the opponent's finger, then he will use the second punch, the third punch and the fourth punch. Ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike. Ning Fan's giant golden flame body whizzed out and threw another destructive punch at Daoist Xian Wei. Daoist Xian Wei had already experienced the power of Ning Fan's ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike. Even though the strength of his opponent's punch was completely weaker than his finger, the explosive damage from the ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike still made his finger bones hurt. His rationality told him that he should not continue to be arrogant in Ning Fan's second punch and only use a finger to fight Ning Fan. However, the pride of an ancient devil from an aristocratic family did not allow him to take back his previous words. Since he said that he would only use a single finger to fight Ning Fan, he could only use a single finger. If he uses the second finger, he would damage the reputation of an ancient devil from an aristocratic family. One should know that Ning Fan was just an immortal king ancient devil at the 3rd level of ancestral reversion while he was a half-saint realm ancient devil at the great perfection level of ancestral reversion. With such a huge difference in cultivation level, it would be really embarrassing if he could not win against Ning Fan with a single finger. Lost Ancient Devil Technique, Star Jade Finger. At this moment, the 9 devil stars in Taoist Xian Wei's right eye rotated rapidly, activating the lost ability of an ancient devil that was passed down from the true world. Then, he used the power of his finger to collide with Ning Fan's ancient devil mountain breaking strike. Boom! Ning Fan was sent flying by Taoist Xian Wei's finger once again. Taoist Xian Wei's finger bones also became even more swollen because of Ning Fan's second punch. Being able to send Ning Fan flying with a single finger, Taoist Xian Wei was definitely not someone the half-step saints from the Dharma ending era could compare to. Even though his cultivation base was only at the half-step saint realm, his strength was already not any weaker than Xiang Bozi, who was at the first-level quasi-sacred realm. It was not strange at all for Ning Fan to be sent flying by Taoist Xian Wei's finger. If it was Dragon King Wansheng or Wanxingzi, they would also be sent flying by Taoist Xian Wei's finger. Everyone was stunned by Taoist Xian Wei's strength. Be it the experts of the foreign races or the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven, it was actually their first time seeing Taoist Xian Wei in action. None of them expected that Ning Fan, who was unrivaled in the past, would be completely suppressed by Taoist Xian Wei's finger. An ancient devil who had lived since ancient times until today was just too strong. Could it be that none of the cultivators from the Dharma ending era could defeat an ancient cultivator without relying on the suppression of their cultivation level? Ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike. Ning Fan threw out more ancient devil iron fists. On the surface, he was sent flying by Taoist Xian Wei again and again, looking extremely miserable. However, in reality, he did not suffer many injuries from Taoist Xian Wei's attacks because he was relying on his divine spirit body that was growing stronger day by day. Occasionally, Ning Fan would be injured by the force of the finger. However, with his strong recovery ability, he could usually heal his injuries in an instant. No matter how miserable he looked, he was not injured at all. Even though Taoist Xian Wei had a high and mighty attitude, the injuries on his finger bones were getting more and more serious. Each of Ning Fan's ancient devil mountain breaking strike was getting heavier and heavier. In just tens of breaths' time, he had already exchanged 800 blows with Taoist Xian Wei. The 800 ancient devil mountain breaking strike had already begun to bare its fangs. However, with a cracking sound, Taoist Xian Wei's finger bones were actually broken by Ning Fan. This time, Ning Fan was not sent flying by Taoist Xian Wei's finger force. With a muffled groan, the person who was sent flying was Taoist Xian Wei. Hiss! Such a powerful senior Xian Wei was actually sent flying by the white-robed Yama. The experts of the foreign races were shocked. The cultivators of the Eastern Heaven, on the other hand, felt extremely excited. Taoist Xian Wei's expression was extremely unpleasant. Just now, he had said that he did not need to use his second finger to deal with Ning Fan. However, the cruel reality had given him a tight slap on his face. He could not help but admit that he had underestimated Ning Fan. Even though Ning Fan's strength was not as good as his ancient devil battle techniques were unimaginably brilliant, which made up for the difference in their strength. An ancient devil divine ability that I have never seen before. It's definitely at the lost grade. Damn it. Elder brother wanted to tell me about this young man's divine ability and I even rejected him. However, I didn't expect him to actually have this kind of mystical ancient devil divine ability. He can actually stack the force of his fists to form consecutive attacks. As an ancient devil of an aristocratic family, I have heard about most of the lost divine abilities of the ancient devils in this world. However, I have never heard of this technique before. It's highly likely because this technique was created in the last era and not an ancient ultimate technique. All of the divine abilities in this world have the concept of compatibility. If it's not created by oneself, no matter how suitable a divine ability is, it's impossible to achieve 100% compatibility. It's precisely because of this that cultivators of my generation need to continuously develop and create divine abilities that belong to us. The compatibility of this young man's fist technique has definitely reached the highest level of 100%. There's only one explanation for this. This technique was created by him. He actually created the lost divine ability of the ancient devil with the identity of an immortal king at the third level of ancestral reversion. Besides, this is an extremely powerful lost grade divine ability. My star jade finger is definitely not comparable to it. I also have a self-created divine ability. Lost ancient devil technique, mixed primordial divine void strike. Daoist Xuanwei's eyes darkened. He threw away his previous arrogant words of not using two fingers to the back of his mind. Then, he threw out an iron fist and faced Ning Fan's fist light with another lost divine ability of the ancient devil. When their fists collided, Daoist Xianwei had a slight upper hand. However, it did not mean that his self-created mixed primordial divine void strike was stronger than the ancient devil mountain breaking strike. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Even though he had an ancient devil power that far surpassed Ning Fan's, he could only gain a slight upper hand because his self-created technique was not as powerful as Ning Fan's. As the number of Ning Fan's consecutive attacks continued to rise, his advantage in strength was also slowly losing. 900 consecutive attacks. 1,000 consecutive attacks. 1,100 consecutive attacks. It was as if there were countless ocean waves stacked on top of each other. It was as if there were countless mountains with endless peaks and boundless soil. When the number of consecutive attacks reached 2,000, Daoist Xianwei clearly felt that he was already at a disadvantage. He was being pushed back by Ning Fan's fist force time and time again. When Ning Fan used the 3,000 ancient devil mountain breaking strike, Daoist Xianwei coughed out blood for the first time. Both of his fists were badly mutilated and he was sent flying. A strong sense of humiliation occupied Daoist Xuanwei's heart. His self-created ancient devil technique was completely defeated by Ning Fan's. I don't believe it. Even with the knowledge of my clan, I don't have a single technique that surpasses yours, the lost ancient devil technique. Eternal True Body, activate. At this moment, Daoist Xianwei did not hold back at all. He even activated his Eternal True Body. After activating his Eternal True Body, his aura force reached the level of a first-level quasi-saint realm expert. He was a giant with 10 tails. His body emitted an incomparably pure ancient devil qi. Just by standing there, he seemed to have become the sky and everything in the world. Ning Fan's expression changed. He did not expect that Daoist Xianwei could actually reach the level of a quasi-saint after activating his Eternal True Body. Even though it was just a small step from the half-saint realm to the quasi-saint realm, this small step represented a huge gap, a gap between heaven and earth. The crowd of foreign races was also shocked. Such a Daoist Xianwei gave them a sense of invincible pressure. Lost ancient devil technique, 10 steps open bow. The giant with 10 tails that Daoist Xianwei had transformed into instantly took 10 steps forward. The momentum of the 10 steps turned into a devil bow. Using his essence qi as an arrow, he shot an arrow at Ning Fan. Ning Fan's golden flame true body was extremely strong. Even though he was sent flying by Daoist Xuanwei's arrow, his defense was not broken. Thus, he was not injured at all. Only his blood and qi were in turmoil because of the tremendous force of the arrow. 100 steps open bow. When Daoist Xianwei saw Ning Fan receive the arrow head-on without suffering any damage at all, his expression turned even uglier. He took 100 steps forward and shot another arrow. This arrow had nearly depleted 10% of his essence qi. The destructive power of this arrow was nearly twice as strong as the previous one. Ning Fan was sent flying again. The golden flames on the surface of his true body had been dispersed by the arrow light. He still can't break his defense. What kind of eternal true body does this young man cultivate? How can he possibly be this strong? Daoist Xuanwei's expression was as calm as still water. Countless devil shadows spread out from his body and he took 1,000 steps forward in an instant. 1,000 steps open bow. This was the strongest devil arrow that he could shoot. It was also the strongest attack that he could release in a fair and square battle. He needed to use more than half of his essence qi to shoot this arrow. The destructive power of this arrow was enough to severely injure most first-level quasi-saints. He did not believe that Ning Fan could withstand it. He would never believe it. Qi the arrow light pierced through 1,000 li, tearing heaven and earth apart. In an instant, it penetrated Ning Fan's defense and penetrated a few inches deep into his eternal true body. The defensive power of Ning Fan's true body was increasing day by day. Even a first-level quasi-saint would have a hard time hurting him. However, this arrow was too powerful. It still penetrated his defense and penetrated a few inches deep into his body. The destructive arrow Qi instantly tore Ning Fan's body apart. Ning Fan's body had exceeded the limit of withstanding the destructive power of this arrow. With a loud bang, his physical body exploded. Is he dead? Daoist Xianwei panted heavily and let out a disdainful snort. However, at the next moment, his expression suddenly changed. He was a little exasperated. After Ning Fan's physical body exploded, it did not turn into a mist of blood and minced flesh that filled the sky. Instead, it turned into billions of raindrops. Each of the raindrops was the 10 billion rain spirit clone that Ning Fan cultivated. It was a life-saving divine ability. When Ning Fan cultivated this technique, he had never thought that he would be able to use it so soon. The billions of raindrops merged together and reformed Ning Fan's golden flame giant body. At this moment, the wound on Ning Fan's chest was bleeding profusely. It was difficult to stop the bleeding. It was caused by the remaining arrow Qi. In the end, he was injured by Daoist Xuanwei's arrow. Fortunately, he was accompanied by rain every day. His 10 billion rain spirit clone was almost flawless. In the nick of time, he used this technique and his broken body neutralized most of the arrow Qi. Thus, he was only slightly injured. This Daoist Xianwei in front of him was really a very powerful opponent. Life-killing technique, activate. Ning Fan's aura suddenly changed. Even though the ink mark of the cross-shaped halo contained the power of the life-killing technique, his aura would instantly change when Ning Fan himself activated the life-killing technique. His aura would then surpass all ancient devils. That was the aura that only the former master of the Devil Conferral Summit could possess. It was a pressure that only ancient devils could feel. This is the life-killing technique. Impossible. This technique had already disappeared from this world along with Mo Zhong. Why do you know this technique? Daoist Xuanwei's expression changed greatly. He no longer had the calmness and arrogance he had before. The life-killing technique could be said to be the restraining technique of all ancient devils. It could seize the essence Qi of devils and devour their cultivation base. Ning Fan himself was already a tough opponent for him. If he uses this technique on top of that, it was highly likely that his essence Qi would be devoured and he would be defeated by Ning Fan in the end. He did not have the confidence to win against Ning Fan if he uses a technique that was within the range of an ancient devil. In that case, he could only take an unconventional approach and use the green wave fire poison. This was not the technique of an ancient devil. On the contrary, it was the technique of the ancient devil's mortal enemy, the Buddha sect. This poison was extremely powerful when used against ordinary people. In ancient times, Daoist Xianwei had even used this poison to kill a quasi-saint realm expert. When used against an ancient devil, the power of this poison would be increased by 30%. This was a poison that was specially used by ancient Buddha cultivators to kill cultivators who disobeyed the Buddha sect. It was taken from the poisonous feathers of the green wave fire sparrow. Little Ning Fan, don't be so arrogant. Once I use this poison, you will die for sure. Daoist Xianwei performed a hand seal and the 10 poisonous tails on his back were immediately ignited with dark green flames. The flames were indescribably beautiful. However, they gave Ning Fan a sense of danger. The yin-yang poison transmitted a strong reaction to him from the flames. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. It seems like this Daoist Xuanwei's tail contains a deadly poison. I wonder how his poison is compared to the great sage Fire Toad's inherited saint poison. It seems like the other party does not intend to continue the battle using the ancient devil body technique. If that's the case, I will no longer hold back and use all my trump cards. Chapter 1145. At this moment, the poisonous flames on the giant tail of Daoist Xuanwei's true body burned even more vigorously. After activating his ability, the poisonous flames spread all over his body, turning him into a green flaming man. Under the effects of the poisonous flames, the appearance and cultivation base of Daoist Xuanwei's eternal true body underwent a huge change. First of all, the appearance of his true body had gained many characteristics of a scorpion man. Initially, he was just a human-faced giant with 10 giant tails. Now, he had the appearance of a giant fire scorpion. Next was the change in his cultivation base. As the poisonous flames covered his body, Daoist Xuanwei's qi rose sharply again. Initially, he was just at the first-level quasi-saint realm. Now, he was at least at the quasi-saint realm with 14 to 5,000 tribulation magic power. It's actually the second stage of the eternal true body. Dragon King Wan Sheng and the other experts of the foreign races were shocked. Ning Fan's eyes also turned solemn. As far as he knew, there were only a handful of people who could achieve the second stage of the eternal true body in the Dharma ending era. However, to the ancient cultivators, there were quite a number of people who could do it. He did not expect Daoist Xianwei to be one of them. When Ning Fan faced Daoist Xianwei just now, even though his cultivation base was at a disadvantage, he actually had an advantage in magic power due to the uniqueness of the cultivation method he cultivated. The total amount of magic power of 13,500 tribulation magic power was much more than Xianwei. It was the main reason why he could fight evenly with Xianwei. However, at this moment, Xuanwei's total amount of magic power surpassed him for the first time, causing his slight advantage to disappear. He was afraid that he would really have to face a tough battle from now on. Perhaps Ning Fan's life-killing technique had evoked Daoist Xuanwei's fear towards this technique. Facing Ning Fan now, Daoist Xianwei did not dare to hold back at all. He truly used his full strength. Ancient Buddha's lost technique, Flame Force Rush. Daoist Xianwei, whose qi rose sharply, took a step forward. His entire body was engulfed in flames. He directly charged at Ning Fan like a burning meteorite. His speed was too fast. It was so fast that Ning Fan was already hit by him just as the flames on his body emerged. The destructive force spread across the area. The entire area was filled with the loud sound of the collision between the two experts. Boom! Ning Fan's true body had a strong defense. Even though Daoist Xuanwei's qi had increased tremendously, his attack still did not break his defense. However, it would be a mistake to assume that Daoist Xuanwei's collision attack was only at this level. The collision was just an aid. Daoist Xuanwei's real purpose was to weaken the golden flames on the surface of Ning Fan's body with tremendous force. Then, he would use the momentum of the collision to send the poisonous qi around his body directly into Ning Fan's body. Poisoning was the key. If Daoist Xianwei does not use this technique, it would take him a lot of effort to break Ning Fan's impenetrable true body defense and poison his internal organs. In other words, this flame force rush was actually a poison technique supplemented by collision. It could avoid the surface defense of the enemy and directly attack their internal organs. It was extremely rare. You want to use brute force to force poison into my body? It's a poison-releasing technique that I've never seen before. Ning Fan's eyes glowed with green light. He had seen through the essence of Daoist Xuanwei's ancient Buddha ability. While he was flying backwards, Ning Fan's unscathed body suddenly let out a muffled groan. He was injured out of nowhere. The injury did not come from Daoist Xuanwei's collision, but from being poisoned. When Daoist Xianwei rammed into Ning Fan, a large amount of the poisonous power of the green wave fire poison directly hit Ning Fan's vital parts. As soon as the violent green wave fire poison entered his body, it immediately destroyed Ning Fan's ancient devil bloodline. If the damage of the green wave fire poison to an ordinary person was 1, then the damage it would cause to an ancient devil would be 10 or even 100. Ning Fan's identity as an ancient devil was an advantageous factor in terms of his abilities. Now, however, it had turned into a disadvantageous factor, causing him to be in a passive position when facing the green wave fire poison. Fortunately, he possessed the power of yin-yang poison. Besides, he also used the fire toad saint poison in his body to fight poison with poison. Thus, he was able to temporarily suppress the green wave fire poison that had invaded his body. However, it was just a temporary suppression. It was not something that could be removed in a short period of time. In terms of quality, this green wave fire poison was far inferior to the inherited holy poison of the great sage fire toad. However, in terms of quantity and purity, it was far superior to the ancient holy poison that had less than 10% of its power that day. When both of them offset each other, the lethality of this poison was not any weaker than the drop of fire toad saint poison that day. Moreover, this poison would cause great damage to an ancient devil. Even though Ning Fan managed to suppress the poison power that had invaded his body, the pain and injuries that his body had to endure were still extremely intense. The burning pain in his internal organs was unbearable. That kind of pain was like the internal organs of an ordinary person being directly scorched by a red-hot iron. It was the proof that he was currently suffering from the fire poison. Even though he had tried his best to suppress the green wave fire poison and prevent the poison power from wreaking havoc in his body, he was still severely injured by Daoist Shuangwei's attack. Moreover, if the poison continues to worsen to a certain extent, he might still be poisoned to death by the green wave fire poison even if he had the poisonous yin-yang poison to protect his life. Ning Fan could not help but admit that Daoist Xianwei, who had unleashed his poison fire and transformed into his second stage, gave him an unprecedented amount of pressure. Fighting against this person was completely like fighting against an old monster on the same level as Xiang Bozi. My chances of winning are slim. The strength of an ancient half-step sage is indeed not something that the half-sage age of Law Doomsday can compare with. Ning Fan's immortal king realm cultivation base is still somewhat insufficient in front of such an existence. However, it was also impossible for him to admit defeat obediently. Humph. So it's just a false alarm. I was wondering how terrifying you would be after activating the life-killing technique. That was why I hurriedly used my strongest trump card. However, I didn't expect you to not have comprehended the essence of the life-killing technique at all. You are far from being able to condense the devil-killing samsara power that Lord Mo created. It was me who made a big fuss over a minor issue. As soon as I saw you activating the life-killing technique, I became overly suspicious. I don't need to use the green wave fire poison at all to deal with you. However, since I have already used it, I might as well kill you with the poison in one go. Flame Force Rush. Daoist Xianwei let out a disdainful snort and took another step forward. It seemed like he wanted to activate the Flame Force Rush again to send more poison power into Ning Fan's body. Unfortunately, as soon as Daoist Shuangwei's step landed on the ground, he spurted out a mouthful of poisonous blood without any warning before his body was sent flying. Under the influence of the poison power, the essence qi in his body became chaotic. How would he have the extra strength to knock Ning Fan? He was already very lucky that he did not fall from the sky in a disheveled manner. It was true that he had sent Ning Fan flying with a single move just now. He had also injured Ning Fan with the fire poison. However, at the moment when he sent Ning Fan flying, Ning Fan had also secretly used the poison power of the fire toad saint poison and sent it into his body. The effects of force were mutual. Daoist Xianwei could borrow the force of impact to send the poison power into Ning Fan's body, while Ning Fan could also borrow the force of impact to send the poison power into Daoist Shuangwei's body. The defense of Daoist Shuangwei's physical body was also extraordinary. However, Ning Fan had imitated the method of releasing the poison power of the Flame Force Rush and directly bypassed the surface defense of Daoist Shuangwei's body, sending the poison into his body. Impossible. You actually saw through the method of using the force of the Flame Force Rush to release the poison. You even imitated it and used it against me. Daoist Xianwei found it hard to believe. At the same time, a sense of humiliation rose within him, causing his killing intent to soar. He was so angry that he laughed instead. The art of poison had always been something that he was proud of. He did not expect that he would be plotted against by a mere immortal king realm cultivator using the art of poison. This is just too ridiculous. Unfortunately, the poison you used is just insignificant. It's not even worthy to carry my green wave fire poison's shoes. I only need half a breath to remove the inferior poison from your body. There's one thing that you cultivators in the last cultivation era might not know. I have the legendary myriad poison primordial body. It's just a waste of effort for you to use poison on me. Daoist Xuanwei's face was filled with disdain. He activated his ability and activated the myriad poison primordial qi in his body, trying to forcefully remove the fire toad's poison from his body. When the crowd heard that Daoist Xuanwei actually had the legendary myriad poison primordial body, all of their expressions changed. The myriad poison primordial body was an innate physique that was similar to the innate charming bones. People with this physique were born with astonishing poison resistance, making them suitable to cultivate poison. If they have gone through cultivation, they could even directly neutralize most of the poisons in the world with their physique. Thus, they were known as the nemesis of poison cultivators. The way the crowd looked at Daoist Xuanwei became even more respectful. They inwardly thought that Daoist Xuanwei was indeed an old monster whose name shook the ancient times. He even has such a rare physique. It's really incredible. None of them believed that Ning Fan could use his poison technique to counterattack and injure Daoist Xuanwei. However, the truth was always out of everyone's expectations. Soon, everyone's gaze turned a little strange because of Taoist Xuanwei's next action of detoxifying the poison. Dissolve. It was the sound of Daoist Xuanwei activating the detoxification ability of the myriad poison immemorial body to disintegrate the holy fire toad poison in his body. However, this poison could not be neutralized. Strange. Your poison does have some tricks up its sleeves. Half a breath might not be enough, but it can only take me 2 or 3 breaths at most. Cure it. 2 or 3 breaths passed. 20 to 30 breaths passed. However, Daoist Xuanwei was still unable to remove the holy fire toad poison from his body. Instead, he was so tired that he was sweating profusely. Because he had overused the detoxification ability of the myriad poison's mixed element body, he had wasted a lot of his physical strength. Interesting. This old man only used 30% of the primal poison qi just now. This time, this old man will use 50%. He still couldn't open it. If it's 70%, he still couldn't open it. 90%, I can't open it. 100%, I can't untie it. 120% of primordial qi that surpasses the limit, he still couldn't open it. No matter how thick-skinned Daoist Xuanwei was, he could not help but feel a little embarrassed at this moment. He was a dignified ancient half-saint who possessed the myriad poison primordial body. However, he actually could not neutralize the nameless poison of a doomsday immortal king. How could this be possible? What kind of broken poison is this? There were not many of them and their purity was not high either. Thus, the poison that it could cause him was very limited. However, the grade of this poison seemed to be quite high. It was actually entrenched in his body like maggots. It was even harder to remove than his green wave fire poison. It had already surpassed the detoxifying limit of his myriad poison primordial body. The myriad poison primordial body could only neutralize the poison of the second step. Could this nameless little poison actually be a poison of the third step? No. This is absolutely impossible. How can a mere doomsday immortal king be qualified to possess a poison of the third step? You bumped into me once. Now, it's my turn to bump into you. Devil Force Rush. Green light flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. In an instant, he imitated Daoist Xuanwei's Flame Force Rush and created an ancient devil ability. His entire body glowed with poisonous light. Then, he turned into a ray of poisonous light and charged at Daoist Xuanwei. Boom! Daoist Xuanwei, who was distracted in detoxifying the poison, did not expect that Ning Fan would dare to take the initiative to knock into him. As a result, he was sent flying backward. The blood and qi in his chest churned. Although his injuries were not that serious, it was very embarrassing. Moreover, more of the fire toad's poison force was injected into his body by Ning Fan. The remaining poison in his body became even more difficult to neutralize. What kind of perception does this young man have? He actually copied my lost ancient Buddha technique in such a short period of time and created a similar ancient devil ability. Daoist Xuanwei's expression changed drastically. It was not because Ning Fan's collision had caused him a lot of collision injuries and poison injuries. Instead, he was shocked by Ning Fan's heaven-defying perception. Of course, the grade of the devil force rush that Ning Fan created on the spur of the moment was far inferior to the original version of the flame force rush. It was impossible for it to be at the lost level. No matter how great Ning Fan's perception was, it was impossible for him to create a lost level ability in an instant. All he did was slightly imitate the poison-releasing technique of the flame force rush. By going against the ancient Buddha intent, he simplified it into an ancient devil poison-releasing technique that belonged to him. The simplified devil force rush was not a high-level poison-releasing technique. However, to Ning Fan at the moment, it was an extremely practical technique. By borrowing the force of the collision, he could penetrate the enemy's defense and directly penetrate the enemy's body. No matter how hard the enemy's tortoise shell is, it could still be poisoned. It was really practical. Moreover, because it was an ancient devil ability, Ning Fan could add the ancient devil destruction Dao that he had comprehended into it and integrate it with the profound meaning of critical strike. The effect of poison attacks was quite outstanding. The critical strike effect made up for the flaw of this technique which was just created and its low grade. If the poison effect of the flame force rush was 10 points, Daoist Xianwei, who was an ancient devil, would probably only be able to inflict 1 to 2 points of poison damage by forcefully using this lost ancient Buddha technique. Even though the green wave fire poison could cause additional damage to the ancient devil, Ning Fan would only suffer tens of poison damage at most after taking a hit from the flame force rush. Compared to the lost level flame force rush, the devil force rush that Ning Fan casually created might only be able to inflict 1 to 2 points of poison damage. However, if he uses the ancient devil destruction Dao to deal a critical strike, 1 to 2 points of poison damage could also be turned into 10 to 20 points of poison damage. Under the influence of various factors, Ning Fan and Daoist Xianwei could barely achieve a draw when using the violent poison technique. Boom! Daoist Xianwei, who was caught off guard, was sent flying by Ning Fan once again. His expression was extremely unpleasant. The feeling of having one's abilities stolen by the enemy was certainly not a good one. When it came to dealing with poison, the flame force rush was not the only technique he had. Seeing that Ning Fan was going to hit him again, Daoist Xianwei chanted a mantra and countless green fireballs flew out from his body, turning into millions of fire rain that rushed towards Ning Fan. Lost ancient Buddha technique, Buddhist Saint Light. It was obviously the ability of the million fire rain, but it was named after light. It was really strange. Ning Fan's body was extremely agile. Even though there were millions of fire rain in front of him, it was impossible for him to be hit by them. Thus, he managed to evade them one by one. He could tell that the fire rain contained the violent green wave fire poison. If he is directly hit by the fire rain, he would certainly be poisoned. The strange thing was that even though Ning Fan had clearly evaded all the fire rain attacks, his eyes still felt a stinging pain and 2 lines of black blood flowed down from them. The green wave fire poison in his body had become more severe. What's going on? I have clearly evaded all the fire rain. Why am I still poisoned? Could it be that the fire rain is not the only medium for the poison power of this technique to spread? Green light continuously flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. Under the enlightenment of the heavenly Tao, he instantly figured out the details of this technique. So that's how it is. No wonder this technique is called Buddhist Saint Light. The medium to spread the poison of this technique is not the fire rain itself but light rays. It was very difficult to evade all the attacks of light. The reason why Ning Fan could see the fire rain that filled the sky was because he could see the fire light. However, those fire light rays were all poisonous. Seeing them meant that he was poisoned. Ning Fan could not help but admit that Daoist Xuanwei's poison technique was too miraculous. He used the collision technique to spread the poison and then used the light technique to spread the poison. Both of them were techniques that he had never heard of before. Buddhist Saint Light. Seeing that Ning Fan was poisoned, Taoist Xianwei smiled proudly and used the Buddhist saint light again. This time, even though Ning Fan managed to close his eyes in time, the poison in his body became more severe. He finally understood that not only could he avoid being poisoned by not looking at the fire light rays, he would also be poisoned as long as he is shown by the light rays. It was actually very easy for Ning Fan to avoid being shown by the light rays. When Taoist Xianwei used the Buddhist saint light on Ning Fan for the third time, Ning Fan immediately activated the power of the dark yin-yang technique and used the dark illusion technique that he had not used for a long time, causing the surrounding heaven and earth to fall into darkness. Not a single ray of light could shine under the darkness that Ning Fan controlled. Those fire light rays that carried poisonous power were all extinguished in the world of darkness. Humph. Insignificant tricks. Compared to the experts of the dark races, your dark cultivation is a little too low. Taoist Xianwei let out a disdainful snort. He still had other poison techniques that could slowly poison Ning Fan to death. Insignificant tricks. Ancient devil technique, black devil light. At this moment, Ning Fan secretly learned the technique of using light to spread poison and merged it into his dark illusion technique, causing the dark illusion technique that had yet to take shape to possess poison damage. At this moment, millions of devil flames suddenly burned in the boundless world of darkness. Those devil flames turned into a rain of fire and attacked Taoist Xianwei. They even emitted poisonous fire light which shone on Taoist Xuanwei's body. Now, it was Taoist Xuanwei's turn to be poisoned. Damn it! This young man has secretly learned another poison-releasing technique. Taoist Xuanwei's expression became even uglier. He tore apart the world of darkness and broke Ning Fan's dark illusion technique. Then, he used other ancient Buddhist poison techniques to attack Ning Fan. There was the technique of using fragrance to spread poison. There was the technique of using sound to spread poison. There was the technique of using the wind, thunder, rain and lightning of nature as the medium to spread poison. Besides, there were all kinds of strange poison techniques. Taoist Xianwei seemed to have opened a new door to poison techniques in front of Ning Fan. It made Ning Fan realize that there were actually so many strange techniques in playing with poison. It turned out that a true poison cultivator could poison the enemy with just a look and a Dao sense. The world of poison techniques that he had come into contact with in the past was too shallow. The poison cultivators of the Age of Chaos could not be compared to the ancient poison cultivators at all. Secretly learning. Secretly learning. Secretly learning. He was a rare second-level heavenly being realm cultivator in the Age of Chaos. It was impossible for him to completely learn the other party's divine art with just a glance. However, if it was just to secretly learn the myriad of strange poison-releasing techniques, then mix them together and create some low-level imitation poison techniques, he could still do it. They exchanged blows again and again with each other using poison techniques. The green wave fire poison in Ning Fan's body was getting heavier and his qi was getting weaker. Taoist Xianwei, on the other hand, was not having an easy time either. The fire toad saint poison in his body was also getting heavier and his qi was getting weaker and weaker. Taoist Xianwei nearly died from anger. He had exchanged hundreds of rounds of poison techniques with Ning Fan but he still failed to poison Ning Fan to death. Instead, both of them were severely injured. Moreover, Ning Fan had plagiarized a lot of the poison techniques of the ancient Buddha sect. What a huge loss. This young man is just too detestable. He deserves to die. He deserves to die. Previously, Taoist Xianwei chose to fight Ning Fan alone because of his pride. He disdained to gang up on an ant like Ning Fan. Now, his embarrassment turned into anger. How could he still care about the glory of the ancient devil realm or the morality of the Jianghu? He just wanted to kill Ning Fan as soon as possible. Why would he care about others interfering? This young man is hard to kill. Fellow Taoist Wan Sheng, if you don't join forces with me now, when are you going to do it? After exchanging another poison technique with Ning Fan and returning empty-handed, Taoist Xianwei roared in anger. Dragon King Wan Sheng wore a strange expression. Just now, It was Daoist Xianwei who forbade him from interfering in the battle. Now, he was asking him to join the battle. What a difficult person to please. However, Daoist Xuanwei's strength was too high. Dragon King Wansheng did not dare to ignore Daoist Xuanwei's request. Besides, he also wanted to kill Ning Fan as soon as possible. One should know that the summoning of the ghost flower of the netherworld had a time limit. If he could not kill Ning Fan within the time limit, he would not be able to turn Ning Fan into an undying ghost soldier. Fellow Daoist, don't worry. I will help you. Dragon King Wansheng had the body of a half-human and half-dragon. Even though one of the two dragon horns on his head was broken, it did not hide his half-saint chi field. He floated over and joined the battle, giving off the demeanor of a powerful expert. Just as he was about to attack Ning Fan from the side, his vision suddenly darkened. He was pulled into Ning Fan's dark illusory world. Millions of flames rained down on his head and poisonous rays shone on his body. Puchi. Dragon King Wansheng tore apart the darkness and escaped from the illusory world. However, he was severely injured by Ning Fan's poison power in just a single move. His expression changed drastically. He had only been watching from the side. He did not feel how dangerous the battle between Ning Fan and Xuanwei's poison technique was at all. Only when he personally joined the battle did he realize how terrifying the power of each of their attacks was. A half-saint realm expert like him was actually injured by Ning Fan in just a single move. The battle between their poison techniques was just too terrifying. He somewhat regretted joining the battle. What are you still standing there for? Help me hold this young man back. I want to kill him with a forbidden curse rank poison technique. Daoist Xianwei shouted with extreme dissatisfaction when he saw Dragon King Wansheng being severely injured by Ning Fan in just a single move. Forbidden curse rank poison technique. No. Divine abilities of that level are all capable of killing on a large scale. If you use it here, I'm afraid many experts of my clan will get involved. Dragon King Wansheng's expression changed when he heard Xuanwei's words. Humph. I don't care about that much. I must kill this young man no matter what. Daoist Xianwei said coldly, completely disregarding the lives and deaths of the foreign race's army. Lost technique and forbidden curse technique were the classifications of divine abilities in ancient times. There were strong and weak lost techniques. All of them required the bloodline of a special race to use. Those with lower cultivation requirements such as vein-opening realm cultivators could start cultivating them. However, they usually needed to possess a cultivation base that was at least 10,000 ancient times in order to truly unleash the power of the lost technique. It could be said that lost technique was a trump card specially made for the cultivators of a special race that lived in the ancient times. Some of the more powerful lost technique could even be the trump card of a third step saint. The forbidden curse rank was even higher than the lost technique. The forbidden curse rank, which had the lowest threshold, required the cultivation base of an ancient great cultivator to fully unleash its power. Not all of the ancient great cultivator level divine abilities could be classified as a forbidden curse rank. First of all, the forbidden curse rank must be matched with the bloodline of a special race. Secondly, the forbidden curse rank was more complicated than the lost technique. It usually required a lot of incantations to increase its destructive power and killing range. The execution of the forbidden curse rank was very complicated, but its power was also quite impressive. Seeing that Daoist Xianwei was stubborn and insisted on using the forbidden curse rank to attack Ning Fan, Dragon King Myriad Saint had no choice but to bite the bullet and hold Ning Fan back to buy time for Daoist Xianwei to chant the incantations. Unfortunately, Dragon King Myriad Saint was not Daoist Xianwei. He could not hold Ning Fan back at all and could only be suppressed by Ning Fan. The flame toad saint poison made him feel like dying. The wondrous seven treasures tree brushed off his dragon scales one after another. The fate-severing sword left wounds on his body one after another. The sun, moon, and star steel hit him time and time again until he coughed out blood. He was no match for Ning Fan at all. However, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and hold Ning Fan back. Dragon King Myriad Saint activated his eternal true body. His body shone with white light and turned into a 100 zhang large 8-headed snake in front of everyone. 8 heads. Didn't they say that this Dragon King Myriad Saint cultivates the 7 heads technique? Ning Fan frowned. He felt that the information he received did not seem to be accurate. He took out the fate-severing sword. With just a single slash, he cut off 2 of Dragon King Myriad Saint's snake heads. However, the snake heads that were cut off by Dragon King Myriad Saint only needed a flash of white light before they grew back. All 8 of his heads were staring at Ning Fan mockingly, as if they were mocking Ning Fan for his mediocre attacks. Ning Fan attacked him again and again, severely injuring Dragon King Myriad Saint. However, no matter how heavily injured the Dragon King was, he would recover instantly with a flash of white light around his body. This was the 8 heads technique that Dragon King Myriad Saint had comprehended after going into seclusion. If he was still using the previous 7 heads technique, he would have most likely been killed by Ning Fan. Fortunately, the 8 heads technique was relatively resistant to attacks. Even though Ning Fan could hold him back, it was difficult for him to inflict any fatal damage on him. In the end, he managed to hold Ning Fan back by relying on the toughness of the 8 heads technique. Daoist Xianwei, on the other hand, took this opportunity to jump out of the battle and chant ancient incantations one after another. Feiyu, Provenance Sacred Face Sparrow, Chaotic Creature. Spiritual Mountain in the west, Bamboo Sea in the south, Golden Cloud in the north and Law Realm in the east. This poison rules the world and cannot be eliminated. Broken Wings, Refined Feathers, Void Spirit Shadow, Void Bones like Mountains, Void Spirit Salvation. After that, he omitted 1,000 words. It was imaginable how much preparation time was needed to release a Forbidden Curse level ability. Most of the magic techniques and abilities required chanting incantations at the very beginning. However, if the user is skilled in using them, they would usually be able to break the incantations. Unfortunately, Forbidden Curse level abilities were an exception. It was not that such abilities could not be broken by chanting incantations. It was just that to cultivators who had yet to attain the 3rd step, it was just too difficult to break the incantations of this level. Therefore, to cultivators of the 2nd step, it was actually very impractical to use such a level of ability in a one-on-one battle. However, if there is a teammate who can delay the opponent and provide enough time for you to chant the incantations, the Forbidden Curse ability would become a peerless killing technique. As Daoist Xianwei chanted more and more incantations, a gigantic fire bird that was millions of li long appeared in the sky above the battlefield. Those who were knowledgeable recognized the appearance of the fire sparrow. It was one of the 10 great Buddhist birds worshipped by the last days Buddha, the green wave Buddhist sparrow. This firebird was completely transformed from Taoist Xuanwei's pure poison power. The flames around it were not scorching, but they were filled with destructive poisonous gas. It was summoned using the jade wave fire poison as a medium. If this firebird really fell, millions of miles of water would be flattened and poisoned. Cultivators below the Immortal Emperor realm would basically be poisoned to death. Even Myriad Saint's Pass, which was protected by an array formation, could be razed to the ground with a single move. Even a defensive expert like Ning Fan could be severely injured or even killed by such an attack. Initially, Ning Fan wanted to get rid of Myriad Saint Dragon King in 2 to 3 moves and then stop Daoist Xianwei from chanting the incantation. Unfortunately, Dragon King Wansheng was too hard to deal with. He was hard to kill and hard to get rid of. Seeing that the gigantic firebird was becoming more and more solid, the incantation of the forbidden incantation was coming to an end. Ning Fan knew that he could not delay any longer. He must not let Daoist Xianwei finish chanting all the incantations. He must get rid of all the enemies in front of him before this incantation is released. There's no time left. With my current strength, I can't defeat Daoist Xianwei at all. At most, I can only fight him to a draw. That's already my limit. Besides, it's impossible for me to get rid of Myriad Saint Dragon King in a short period of time. If this forbidden incantation really lands on me, even if I can survive by luck, none of the Eastern Heaven cultivators behind me in the Myriad Saints Pass will survive. Also, those thorny gigantic flowers keep making me feel uneasy. Sure enough, I can only rely on external forces, Ning Fan sighed. Using the connection between their minds, he gave an order to the Tao extermination lightning nascent soul which had been waiting for him for a long time. In the eyes of outsiders, it was already enough for him to be proud of himself for being able to fight Daoist Xianwei to a draw with his immortal king realm cultivation base. However, he was not satisfied with this achievement. If he wanted to guard the border river and the eastern sky, his strength alone was too insignificant. Just Daoist Xianwei alone was enough to make him exhausted. If an even stronger enemy appeared, what should he do? I can't be complacent just because of my recent achievements. I must calm myself down and continue to accumulate strength. Master, what are your orders? The Tao extermination lightning nascent soul's respectful voice resounded in his mind. Kill that fiery bird for me. Can you do it? If this bird is completely formed, little nascent soul won't be able to do it. But now, this bird is only 60% formed. It won't be difficult to destroy it. The Tao extermination lightning nascent soul's words were filled with strong confidence. She was the Tao extermination lightning nascent soul who could kill 10 immortal emperors with a single strike. She was the Tao extermination lightning nascent soul which would give even quasi-saints a headache. A mere fiery bird which had yet to form the forbidden spell was nothing to her. Be it myriad Saint Dragon King or Daoist Xianwei, all of these existences were nothing in her eyes. She had made up her mind. She wanted to help Ning Fan and destroy all of his enemies. Only by doing so would Big Sister Black Devil stop beating her up. Rumble, all of a sudden, thunder rumbled across heaven and earth. In the depths of the rumbling thunder, the lightning diagram opened up. A gigantic lightning nascent soul which sat at the center of the lightning diagram appeared in front of everyone while riding on the ancestral lightning sparrow. The lightning nascent soul raised its chubby little hand and pointed at the gigantic fiery sparrow in the sky. Immediately, a blood-red lightning pillar which carried a destructive chi struck the fiery bird which had yet to fully form, turning it into ashes. Then, he waved his chubby little hand and shot out 2 lightning pillars. One of them struck Dragon King Wan Sheng, causing him to be charred on the inside and tender on the outside, causing 7 of his 8 snake heads to be turned into mush on the spot. The other struck Daoist Xianwei, causing the poisonous flames on his body to flicker and extinguish, causing 5 of his 10 giant tails to break. Everyone was stunned by the domineering appearance of the Tao extermination lightning nascent soul. Even Daoist Xianwei, who was arrogant and insufferably arrogant, just now turned pale and had the urge to curse. Fuck his ancestors. Why would a Tao extermination lightning nascent soul appear in this place? Which immortal emperor is facing his tribulation? How could he be so unlucky and attract this thing? Could it be that this is a trick played by the Eastern Heaven immortal emperor in the myriad Saint Pass? But why is this Tao extermination lightning nascent soul attacking us instead of attacking the immortal emperor who is facing his tribulation? Daoist Xianwei was so angry that he burst out cursing. He was an ancient devil and his words were crude. Everything he said before was just a facade. Now that he was shocked, he finally revealed his true nature. When Daoist Xianwei saw the Tao Annihilation Thunder Infant for the first time, he did not expect that it would be someone's captive. After all, he had just arrived at this place. He did not know that Ning Fan had captured a Tao-destroying lightning infant in the third path. But myriad Saint Dragon King knew. It wasn't just Dragon King Wan Sheng. Many of the foreign races had heard of this rumor as well. But most people didn't believe it. No one believed that Ning Fan could capture the legendary Tao exterminating lightning infant. Moreover, no one could imagine that Ning Fan could actually subdue the arrogant lightning infant after capturing it and make it help him in battle. This was too absurd. Even a third-step sage wouldn't be able to subdue the arrogant Tao extermination thunder nascent soul. Moreover, why was the Tao annihilation lightning nascent riding an ancestral lightning sparrow? This combination was simply too strange. Unheard of. The forbidden curse has been broken. Follow me to kill the enemies. Ning Fan ordered the Tao destruction lightning nascent in a deep voice. Yes. Master. The Tao Destruction Lightning nascent soul chuckled coldly. It looked at Xian Wei and the other experts as if they were looking at its food. As the Tao Destruction Lightning nascent soul shot out a few more destructive lightning pillars, the expressions of Xian Wei, Myriad Saint, and the other experts changed drastically. They did not even care about the ghost flower of the netherworld that they had painstakingly summoned. After exchanging glances with each other, all of them ran for their lives. Ning Fan alone was already very difficult to deal with. If the Tao Destruction Lightning nascent soul joins the fray, Xian Wei was very afraid that he would die here today. Even though the ghost flower of the netherworld was famous, Madame Ghost Flower who summoned it was too weak. She would not be of much use. Since the situation was unfavorable, they could only retreat for the time being. Who asked the Tao Destruction Lightning nascent soul to be so infamous? A full-powered attack from it could even kill 10 immortal emperors in a single move. That kind of existence was like a natural disaster. It was not a good opponent. Master. That Tao Destruction Lightning nascent soul is actually calling Ning Fan Master. This is too absurd. This is too absurd. Daoist Xian Wei could not hide the shock on his face. He continuously dodged the attacks from the lightning pillars and ran far away in the blink of an eye. He did not run together with Myriad Saint Dragon King. Instead, they ran separately. He felt that even though Myriad Saint Dragon King was not a match for the Tao Destruction Lightning nascent soul, it would not be difficult for him to run away alone. He would certainly be able to run away, but he would inevitably suffer some serious injuries from the pursuit of the Tao Destruction Lightning nascent soul. He did not want to suffer serious injuries. The reason why he left Myriad Saint Dragon King behind was because he wanted to use him as a bait to attract the enemy's firepower and help him block the calamity. Because he had fled faster than Dragon King Wansheng was slower. As expected, the Tao Extermination Lightning Infant was still chasing after Dragon King Wansheng relentlessly. Most of the lightning pillars were aimed at Dragon King Wansheng, and not Wu Yu who was further away. Sigh. Fellow Taoist Myriad Saint, do me a favor and help me take some of the attacks. After all, your 8 heads technique can take a beating and you're not afraid of getting hurt. Taoist Xian Wei thought to himself with a gloomy expression. Suddenly, Ning Fan's figure appeared behind Taoist Xian Wei. Without saying a word, Ning Fan struck him with his rod. That single strike almost used up all of Ning Fan's remaining strength. Ning Fan had been reserving his strength all along. He did not use the Sea Calming Divine Needle because he was waiting for this strike. Not good. I can't dodge it. The timing of Ning Fan's sneak attack was too ingenious. It was so ingenious that Taoist Xian Wei only had his guard up against the Tao Destruction Lightning nascent soul. He did not have the time to dodge the attack at all. At the critical moment, he tilted his body slightly and managed to avoid getting his vital parts hit. The Sea Calming Divine Needle struck the left shoulder of Taoist Xian Wei's true body. With just a single strike, Ning Fan shattered the shoulder bone of his true body into pieces. Moreover, the shattered bone could not be healed or restored within a short period of time. Puff, Taoist Xian Wei spurted out a mouthful of blood. He was struck down from the sky by Ning Fan's rod. However, he did not dare to continue fighting Ning Fan. He just glared at Ning Fan with resentment. Then, he held his limp left arm and dived into the bottom of the Realm River, escaping without a trace. Little brat, I'll remember you. Just you wait. Those were the words that Taoist Xian Wei left behind before he left. Ning Fan wanted to chase after him to the bottom of the river. However, Taoist Xian Wei actually opened his devil cavity halfway and vanished in an instant. Ning Fan did not know if he had escaped out of the Eastern Heaven or if he was still in the Eastern Heaven or in the Realm River. Ning Fan sighed inwardly. It was such a pity that he could not kill an existence like Xian Wei. However, when he thought about it, it made sense. How could it be that easy to kill an existence like him? If he could kill this person so easily, a being like Xiang Bozi would have lived his life in vain. However, even if Xian Wei could run away, he could not escape Myriad Sage. Ning Fan did not care about the other members of the foreign races. His eyes were only fixed on Myriad Sage Dragon King. At this moment, the Tao Destruction Lightning nascent soul was riding on the ancestral Lightning Sparrow, chasing after the unlucky Myriad Sage Dragon King and beating him up. Myriad Sage Dragon King only had the strength to run away. He did not have the strength to fight back at all. Of course, Ning Fan could not let Myriad Sage Dragon King escape as well. If he does not kill one of them, wouldn't he gain nothing from this battle? Seal. This time, Ning Fan had learned his lesson. In order to prevent Myriad Sage Dragon King from escaping as well, Ning Fan activated the Force character and sealed heaven and earth. He first cut off Myriad Sage Dragon King's path of retreat before catching him like a turtle in a jar. Seeing that Daoist Xian Wei had actually abandoned him and fled on his own, Myriad Sage Dragon King was so angry that he cursed loudly. He could not even defeat Ning Fan alone. Now that the Tao Destruction Lightning nascent soul had joined the fray, would he really die here? No, he still had the ghost flowers of the netherworld. Even though the cultivation base of Madame Gue Hua who summoned the flowers was too low, she could still use those flowers to protect her life. Fellow Taoist Gue Hua, quickly save me. For the first time in his life, the arrogant Myriad Sage Dragon King spoke to an Eastern Heaven cultivator in such a polite manner. Moreover, that Eastern Heaven cultivator was a traitor that he had always looked down upon. Madame Gue Hua's pretty face turned pale. She could not let Myriad Sage Dragon King die here. Otherwise, because of the restriction, she, a traitor of the Eastern Heaven, would die together with him. Chapter 1146. Since the rebellious emperors of the Eastern Heaven had all been planted with restrictive spells, Madame Gue Hua did not dare to escape alone. She had no choice but to stay here and assist Myriad Saint Dragon King. She bit the tip of her tongue and spat out a drop of black blood, sprinkling it on the thorny flowers that were growing on the surface of the water. After using this drop of black blood, Madame Gue Hua's originally beautiful face instantly turned old and ugly. As for those thorny flowers, their ghost chi skyrocketed, making them incomparably terrifying. Ning Fan, who was working together with the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant to kill Myriad Saint Dragon King and the other experts of the foreign races, frowned. He sensed the changes in the thorny flowers on the surface of the water. However, he did not put those giant flowers as his priority. Since Daoist Xian Wei had escaped, what Ning Fan wanted to do the most right now was to kill Myriad Saint Dragon King. Seeing that Madame Gue Hua had used her black blood, Myriad Saint Dragon King heaved a sigh of relief. After using all his strength to block the joint attack from Ning Fan and the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant, he gave Ning Fan a strange smile. Little Yen Luo, you are indeed very strong. I am not your opponent, let alone your Tao Destruction Lightning Infant. However, if I want to escape from here, you won't be able to stop me. Ha! Now, it's time for the Night of 100 Ghosts. Ghost soldiers, appear. As soon as Myriad Saint Dragon King's voice fell, the chilly wind between the sky and the water instantly became 10 times colder. At this moment, the thorny flowers on the surface of the water opened their bloody mouths out of nowhere, making them look like a man-eating flower. There were also ghosts that were spat out from the mouths of hundreds and thousands of thorny flowers. Their bodies were stained with disgusting mucus. This is... Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. Those ghosts that were spat out by the thorny flowers seemed a little familiar. There seemed to be the immortal kings and immortal venerables that he had killed before, the low-grade foreign races that he had massacred and the immortal emperors of the foreign races that he had killed. More and more ghosts flew out from the mouths of the thorny flowers and stared at Ning Fan blankly. However, as Myriad Saint Dragon King gave an order, all of the ghosts showed killing intent towards Ning Fan and charged towards him in a frenzy. These experts of the foreign races should have been killed by me. Why are their souls still intact? The death of a human is like the extinguishing of a lamp, the death of an immortal is like the scattering of thoughts. It's fine for those foreign races with first step cultivation, as it's not difficult for their souls to not be extinguished after death. However, if a second step expert were to perish, it would be as difficult as ascending the heavens for their soul to be reborn. The Fuli spirit will has such a heaven-defying ability, and these thorny giant flowers actually have it as well. Bang! Bang! Ning Fan summoned the fate-severing sword, the steel of sun, moon, and stars, and the wondrous tree of 7 treasures at the same time. The ghosts that tried to approach him were shattered into pieces. However, after being smashed into pieces, those ghosts could actually be reborn again and again. It was impossible to kill them all. Putting aside low-grade ghosts, even if they could resurrect infinitely, they would just be sending themselves to their deaths. Ning Fan could kill hundreds or thousands of them with just a raise of his hand. But the higher-level ghosts were a little tricky. An immortal sovereign or immortal king with only 1 life was not much of a threat, but an immortal sovereign or immortal king with unlimited lives was even harder to deal with than some weaker immortal emperors. What troubled Ning Fan the most were those ghost immortal emperors who could resurrect infinitely. When these immortal emperors were still alive, none of them could withstand more than a few attacks from Ning Fan. However, after they turned into ghosts, not even mid-grade innate magic treasures could truly destroy their ghosts. It was really strange. When a group of immortal emperors no longer faced the threat of death, they would be able to attack their enemies without caring about their own injuries. The explosive destructive power would be extremely terrifying. Fortunately, Ning Fan's eternal true body had an extremely strong defense, and the cross-shaped light ring was also extremely heaven-defying. After these ghostly immortal emperors died, they didn't have the East pacifying talisman to counter the heaven sealing art, so their intelligence became very low. Just as they were about to get within 1,000 zhang of Ning Fan, they were all frozen to death by the cross-shaped halos. Then, they were killed by Ning Fan again and again. They were reborn, destroyed, and reborn again. It was incomparably disgusting to kill them all. Even though Ning Fan was not afraid of these ghost immortal emperors, he was still held back by them after all. Thus, he did not have the strength to worry about Myriad Saint Dragon King. The Tao Annihilation Lightning Infant was also held up by a few undying and indestructible ghost soul immortal emperors, and could no longer chase after Myriad Saint Dragon King. Her lightning pillar, which had always been successful, was actually unable to kill these ghosts. This made her feel very frustrated. Even she felt troubled by these ghosts that could resurrect infinitely. At the same time, he felt that the man looked familiar. He seemed to have heard of him somewhere before. It must be a very old memory. Otherwise, she would have remembered it. Ha ha ha. Little Yen Luo, you're just so. Are these half-completed undying ghost soldiers enough to give you a headache? You just stay here and fight these undying ghost soldiers. I'm going to leave now. Myriad Saint Dragon King smiled proudly. While Ning Fan was distracted, he began to tear apart the great force of heaven and earth, trying to escape from Ning Fan's blockade. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. How could he let Myriad Saint Dragon King escape? All of a sudden, he stopped the attacks of most of his magic treasures and only held the fate-severing sword in his hand. Then, he used a strange sword technique to cut thousands of low-grade ghosts that were approaching the range of the light ring into 2. Myriad Saint Dragon King was filled with disdain. He did not even bother to turn his head around. He was certain that Ning Fan's attack was useless. The ghosts that were killed should be able to resurrect infinitely. How could an undying ghost soldier be eliminated with just a single attack? Their ability to resurrect infinitely was not just a joke. Even if these ghosts were just half-completed undying ghost soldiers and they were not complete, they were still not something that could be eliminated with such a simple method. Moreover, if it wasn't because these undying ghost soldiers were just half-completed undying ghost soldiers which had the fatal flaw of time limit, Myriad Saint Dragon King would definitely choose to stay here and besiege Ning Fan with his ghost army. Only the true undying ghost soldiers could be used forever. The half-completed undying ghost soldiers could only be summoned on the spot and could only be used for around an hour. What a pity. What a pity. It seems like the plan to attack the Myriad Saints Pass this time has failed. I won't have the chance to turn this heaven-defying immortal king into a true undying ghost soldier. With this brat's strength, the Grand Divine Priest will also be interested if he is turned into an undying ghost soldier. What a pity. Myriad Saint Dragon King sighed. Ah! All of a sudden, he seemed to hear the shrill screams of the ghosts behind him as if he was hallucinating. It's impossible. I must be hearing things. How could those half-completed undying ghost soldiers be screaming? Since they could resurrect after death, those ghosts should not have made a sound when they were killed. Myriad Saint Dragon King shook his head and silently chanted a calming incantation, trying to suppress the hallucinations in his ears. However, not only did the hallucinations not disappear, they became even more intense. Ah! More and more ghosts were screaming in pain. It's not a hallucination. Those half-completed undying ghost soldiers were really screaming in pain. Myriad Saint Dragon King, who had just torn apart half of the seal of heaven and earth, was shocked. He turned his head and saw an unbelievable scene. When Ning Fan used a strange sword technique, the half-completed undying ghost soldiers who were said to be immortal for a limited time were destroyed forever. They could no longer be resurrected. What's going on? What kind of sword technique is that? It can actually destroy undying living beings. Myriad Saint Dragon King felt that his outlook on life had received a huge impact. Suddenly, he thought of something and the 8 giant snake heads sucked in a cold breath. He remembered that the information about Ning Fan mentioned something about him being the successor of the ancient chaos. The successor of the ancient chaos. Could it be the successor of the ancient chaos that I thought he was? The ferocious star who killed undying living beings like cutting vegetables in the ancient times. The monstrous great emperor who was chosen by several immortal sovereigns of the true world when he was only at the second step of the immortal world. The ancient chaos great emperor. Legend has it that the ancient chaos great emperor could easily kill undying living beings. I didn't believe it at first. I didn't expect it to be true. This young man is actually not afraid of undying living beings. He actually has a sword technique that can harm undying living beings. Slash. Under the powerful attacks of Ning Fan's 5 yin-yang swords and life-severing sword, large numbers of half-completed undying ghost soldiers were destroyed forever. The Tao Destruction Lightning Infant was stunned. The undying living beings that even she found difficult to deal with were actually destroyed by Ning Fan with ease. For the first time, she felt a trace of admiration towards her master, Ning Fan, from the bottom of her heart. He's too cool. Is this my master? He is like a heavenly god of golden flames who wields a divine sword to kill undying living beings who go against the heaven samsara. He's too cool. The thunder infant of Tao Annihilation shamefully blushed. A huge golden infant's pretty face was as red as it could get. Impossible. How could the undying ghost soldiers of the ghost flower of the netherworld be destroyed so easily? Wasn't the achievement of the ancient chaos great emperor in killing undying living beings fabricated by the later generations? Could it be true? Madame Gue Hua and great emperor Maha were drenched in cold sweat. Even the undying living beings could not stop Ning Fan. Once Ning Fan kills all of them, his next target would be Myriad Saint Dragon King and them, the traitors. Fellow Taoist Gue Hua, we shouldn't stay here for long. I have a one-time devil cavity that was given to me by the Devil Conferral Summit. I will bring you out of this place. Great Emperor Maha suddenly became forthright and wanted to escape with Madame Gue Hua. The devil cavity was a unique technique of the ancient devils. He had a one-time devil cavity. Even if Ning Fan sealed the heaven and earth, he would still be able to escape from this place. Of course, that method of escape could only be used once. Moreover, the primordial spirit of an immortal emperor must be offered to the devil cavity as a sacrificial offering. Otherwise, the devil cavity would collapse halfway, Great Emperor Maha sneered. That was why he wanted to escape with Gue Hua. Wasn't Gue Hua a ready-made sacrificial offering for an immortal emperor? What? Fellow Taoist actually has a one-time devil cavity that defies the heavens? However, we are under the restriction of the great divine priest of the foreign races. If we abandon the troops of the foreign races and escape on our own, we will be killed by the restriction. Madame Guehua was pleasantly surprised at first, but then, she said worriedly. Don't be afraid. I have a secret medicine that can suppress the enslavement restriction of the Ziwei immortal cultivator. Take it. Great Emperor Maha handed Madame Guehua an unknown pill without hesitation. It was true that he had a secret medicine. However, the medicine that he gave to Madame Guehua was fake. It was just a sacrificial offering. How could it be worthy of using the precious immemorial devil medicine? He just needed to deceive her. Thank you, fellow Taoist, for saving me from the abyss of suffering. From now on, I am yours. I am willing to serve you every day. At the moment of life and death, Madame Guehua did not suspect anything. After taking the pill, she winked at Great Emperor Maha. However, she had forgotten that she had used the power of the Netherworld Blood Pact. Her appearance had become extremely ugly. Her winking nearly made Great Emperor Maha vomit on the spot. Let's escape now. Devil Cavity, open. Great Emperor Maha activated the one-time Devil Cavity and tore open a pitch-black passage between heaven and earth. He brought Madame Guehua and was about to enter it in a flash. However, at this moment, a sharp sword light that could pierce through 1,000 li came slashing at them, shattering the one-time Devil Cavity. Great Emperor Maha and Madame Guehua let out a muffled groan. They were blasted out by the hurricane caused by the collapse of the Devil Cavity. Their expressions instantly turned extremely ugly. Ning Fan had already killed most of the high-level ghosts and got rid of the entanglement of the ghosts. Now, he was right in front of the two of them. Ning Fan. If you dare to stop me from escaping, I will fight you to the death. Great Emperor Maha was infuriated. What nonsense are you talking about? You are the traitors of the Eastern Sky. How can I let you escape? Die. Qi Ning Fan's golden flame true body held the fate-severing sword. What kind of ability did Great Emperor Maha have? It was said that he had once fought with Luo Ho before he became an emperor. However, he was actually forced to retreat by 3 punches. With his current cultivation base, it would be difficult for him to withstand a single sword strike from the fate-severing sword. Ah! Great Emperor Maha let out a miserable shriek. He was killed by Ning Fan's sword. It was a strange death. Great Emperor Maha did not have anything like a primordial spirit in his body. His physical body was everything he had. As expected, this Great Emperor Maha is a corpse devil. Ning Fan recalled the information he obtained after he killed the Primal Core Realm Great Emperor and smiled coldly. Be it the Primal Core Realm Great Emperor or Great Emperor Maha, none of them were native cultivators of the Eastern Sky. Therefore, they did not feel guilty at all when they betrayed the Eastern Sky. One of them was a pill devil while the other was a corpse devil. Both of them were devil creatures that had escaped to the Eastern Sky from the Supreme Pill's sacred region. The living beings of the Supreme Pill's sacred region could not leave the sacred region. However, strange living beings like pill devils and corpse devils could. It was precisely because there were many pill devils and corpse devils who had escaped from the Extreme Pill's sacred region and stayed in the Eastern Sky forever. That was why the Extreme Pill's sacred region tightened its control and no longer allowed any non-human living beings to escape from the sacred region. I'm getting sidetracked. Ning Fan was not concerned about Great Emperor Maha's background at all. Compared to Great Emperor Maha, he was more concerned about Lady Ghost Flower. The ugly woman in front of him was quite capable. She could summon a thorny gigantic flower and undead creatures. Interesting. If it was in the past, Ning Fan would not mind sparing Lady Ghost Flower's life and keeping her by his side as a cauldron or a servant. Unfortunately, she was a traitor. If she was a traitor, how could he forgive her? Because of her betrayal, not only did countless cultivators of the Eastern Sky die because of her, but those people were also Ning Fan's comrades. They were the people who protected the Eastern Sky selflessly. Even though their corpses were not cold yet, this woman must pay the price. Don't kill me. I can be your pillow. Lady Ghost Flower, whose face was so ugly that it was distorted, immediately begged when she saw Ning Fan's cold eyes looking at her. Even though she was begging on the surface, she had already made a ruthless decision. Without any warning, the space behind Ning Fan was suddenly torn apart. An innate flower hoe which was filled with ghostly chi flew out from it and struck at Ning Fan's head. It was a sneak attack. Moreover, it was the kind of sneak attack that was extremely difficult to dodge. The timing was just too good. Unfortunately, Ning Fan did not need to dodge the attack of a mere low-grade innate magic treasure. He did not even try to dodge it. Instead, he allowed the hoe to hit the top of his head. Even the golden flames on the surface of his body did not break. She's indeed a cruel and merciless woman. Even when she's about to die, she still dares to make a false accusation. Not bad, Ning Fan sneered. A ray of fate's severing sword light slashed out, shredding Lady Ghost Flower's physical body into pieces and capturing her primordial spirit along the way. He did not immediately throw her into the divine refining cauldron to kill her. He was still very interested in the method that Lady Ghost Flower used to summon the giant thorny flower and the undying being. Just as he was about to search her soul, her primordial spirit withered rapidly after leaving her physical body. This scene was like a fresh flower that was pulled out from the soil. It died extremely quickly. Seeing such a strange scene, Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. He seized the time to search Lady Ghost Flower's soul. In just 10 breaths of time, Lady Ghost Flower's primordial spirit completely withered and died. The information that Ning Fan obtained from searching her soul within such a short period of time was very limited. After Lady Ghost Flower's primordial spirit withered, a seed which was shrouded in ghostly chi fell out from her primordial spirit. Almost at the same time when Lady Ghost Flower died, the ghost flowers of the netherworld that she summoned all turned into shadows and disappeared. As soon as the ghost flowers of the netherworld disappeared, the half-completed undying beings also lost their source of power and disappeared. This was the reason why Ning Fan did not go after Myriad Saint Dragon King but went to kill the traitorous Emperor of the Eastern Heaven first. Those undying beings were too annoying. They were even harder to deal with than Myriad Saint Dragon King. Without those undying beings, Myriad Saint Dragon King was the only high-level combat power of the enemy. Ning Fan and the Dao Destruction Lightning Infant were now free to focus on dealing with Myriad Saint Dragon King. Myriad Saint Dragon King was in despair. He was still a little bit away from completely breaking the seal of Ning Fan's great force. This seal was set up by Ning Fan with 13,500 tribulations worth of magic power. It was too difficult to break. It was just like a first-level quasi-sacred realm expert who was blocking his path of retreat. If the seal cannot be broken, he would not be able to escape. If he cannot escape, he would have to bear the wrath of Ning Fan and the Dao Destruction Lightning Infant. Ning Fan was not Daoist Xianwei. At this moment, there was no need for him to fight Myriad Saint Dragon King alone. Why should he talk about morality with Myriad Saint Dragon King? Of course, he would choose to bully Myriad Saint Dragon King with numbers. In that case, how would Myriad Saint Dragon King have any chance of winning? Even if he used all his trump cards, he was still killed by Ning Fan and the Dao Destruction Lightning Infant in the end. Of course, Ning Fan could also do it alone. However, it would take too much time. Myriad Saint Dragon King's 8 heads were indeed worthy of praise. It was too difficult to kill him. According to Ning Fan's estimation, without the help of the Dao Destruction Lightning Infant, he would need at least a few days to exhaust all the power of the 8 heads of Myriad Saint Dragon King and kill him. With the help of the Dao Destruction Lightning Infant, he only used 2 hours to kill Myriad Saint Dragon King. Of course, all the low-grade foreign races that came to attack the Myriad Saint Pass this time were killed because Ning Fan had sealed the area in advance. Even though Daoist Xianwei had escaped, the entire Myriad Saint Pass was still filled with cheers. Countless cultivators of the Eastern Heaven who were fanatical about Ning Fan had almost regarded the powerful Ning Fan as a god in their hearts after what happened today. Ning Fan had defeated the army of 2 half-step sovereigns and more than 10 immortal emperors all by himself. There was absolutely no one below the quasi-sage realm in the Eastern Heaven who could surpass Ning Fan's achievement. Even the senior figures of the Eastern Heavens such as the Void Space Emperor and the Divine Space Emperor began to treat Ning Fan as a senior from the bottom of their hearts. Everyone was cheering. Only LV Feng and Yun Lei were not cheering. Instead, they were blaming themselves. When Ning Fan faced the army of foreign races alone, it was not that they did not have the courage to fight alongside him. It was just that they knew very well that even if the two of them ran out of the formation of the Myriad Saint Pass, they would not be able to provide any help to Ning Fan. They were just too weak. The gap between them and Ning Fan was no longer just 1 or 2 cultivation realms. Instead, it was the difference between the 2 dimensions. The weak did not have the qualifications to be friends with the strong. Even if the weak want to fight alongside the strong, they would only become the strong's burden. That night, the shocking achievement of the Myriad Saint Pass had once again shaken the entire Border River Alliance. At night, the Void Space Emperor and the others who had recovered their physical strength led the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven to launch a surprise attack on the Vermilion Bird Pass, which was the last impregnable pass of the 9th path. LV Feng and Yun Lei did not participate in the battle. The troops of the foreign races that were left on the surface of the 9th path had already been slaughtered by Ning Fan alone. There were not many foreign races guarding the Vermilion Bird Pass, and none of them were immortal emperors. With the help of the Void Space Emperor and the others, it would be enough to easily crush the Vermilion Bird Pass. They were disdainful to covet such a free contribution. They hoped to be like Ning Fan and fight against the foreign races with their swords and spears. However, they did not have the strength to do so. The few cultivators who stayed behind in the Myriad Saint Pass held a grand banquet to thank the hero of the 9th path, Ning Fan. Logically speaking, as Ning Fan's friends, it was impossible for LV Feng and Yun Lei to be absent from such a banquet. However, they were still absent. Because of shame. While he was drunk, Ning Fan's eyes were as calm as still water. His gaze fell on the 2 empty seats at the side. He seemed to have understood something and smiled bitterly. Given his intelligence, how could he not know that his 2 fair-weather friends were a little stubborn this time? Under Ning Fan's suggestion, the banquet did not last for too long. Everyone knew that Ning Fan had just gone through a great battle during the day. Now, he needed to rest. Naturally, he would not celebrate through the night. After Ning Fan left the banquet, he did not really go to rest as everyone had guessed. Instead, he carried a few wine jars and went straight to LV Feng and Yun Lei. It did not matter whether Ning Fan's friends were strong or weak. What was important was that they were sincere. That was enough. If LV Feng and Yun Lei had enough strength to help Ning Fan, even if it was just 0.001%, they would still choose to join the battle. If they could save Ning Fan's life by sacrificing themselves, they would certainly be willing to die for him. However, the cruel reality was that even if they sacrificed their lives and gave their all, they could not even touch the corner of Ning Fan's clothes. As for Ning Fan, he did not need their help at all. Cheers. It was already late at night. LV Feng and Yun Lei avoided the lively banquet. They stayed alone and drank wine to drown their sorrows. The scenes where they interacted with Ning Fan in the past seemed to have drifted far away. They could not see them clearly anymore. In the past, I only knew that marriage requires a match between 2 families. However, I never thought that making friends might be like this. Sigh. I don't even have the value to share life and death with my friends. I'm ashamed to call myself a friend. The monarchs of the mortal world are at the peak. Therefore, they can only be alone. If a cultivator ascends to the peak, he can only be alone. It's not that he doesn't want to make friends. It's just that there is no one else who is worthy to share wine with him and entrust life and death to him. While the 2 of them were sighing, they suddenly saw a young man in white robes walking towards them with a smile on his face. Their expressions instantly became a little awkward. Then, the shame on their faces became even stronger. Ning Fan sat down as if he did not see the shame on their faces. As soon as he opened his mouth, he said arrogantly, "I'm very strong. Damn it. This brat is so arrogant today. I know you're strong, but don't you feel embarrassed when you keep boasting about yourself?" LV Feng and Yun Lei, who were feeling ashamed and blamed themselves, suddenly felt powerless to complain. "You're also very weak," Ning Fan said another sentence without any rhyme or reason. LV Feng and Yun Lei, who thought that Ning Fan was boasting, suddenly felt the loneliness and silence in Ning Fan's words. They did not know why, but their hearts suddenly calmed down. It was as if they were infected by Ning Fan's loneliness. "Because I was weak, I failed to protect my sworn brother well. In the end, he lost his chance to walk on the path of immortality and became silent in the cycle of reincarnation in the Rain World." Rain World? This brat is actually someone who ascended from the mortal world. Why haven't I heard about it before? Wait. This brat has made so many enemies in the four heavens. If this matter is leaked, how many people would come to the mortal world to take revenge on his family? How could he simply tell others about this? Why did he tell them? Brother Ning, stop. Stop. What you said is a big secret. You can't just tell others. It's not that we're worried that we won't keep it a secret. It's just that once we die in the hands of our enemies and our souls are searched, it's inevitable that. LV Feng and Yun Lei became anxious. Just as they were about to stop Ning Fan from continuing, Ning Fan shook his head and said, "Don't interrupt me. Listen to me. Because I was weak, I lost my sworn brother. Also, because I was weak, I couldn't help my father recover his memories. I couldn't stay by my mother's side and help her get rid of the pain of petrification. In my previous life, because I was weak, I couldn't change the fate of the ancient heavenly court. In this life, I don't have the power to change the fate of my master, ancient chaos. I couldn't stop the fall of the seventh slaying emperor. Even a woman who was very important to me has turned into a soul grass because of my weakness. It's not time for us to meet again. I've never had a fixed goal for cultivation. I don't have any vision or expectations about the end of cultivation. I don't seek immortality or eternity. I want to protect something, but I keep losing it. I'm very hesitant. In the water of the Realm River, I saw the current me, who is a monster that I can't defeat no matter what. I'm very hesitant. I don't know if I can really protect the Realm River and the Eastern Heaven with my current self. However, I can't retreat. I can't do it no matter what. It's very tiring. However, I've been walking on this path since I was very young. When I was young, I carried the responsibility of being my elder brother. Later on, I carried the responsibility of being the city lord of 7 Apricot City and the successor of the Black Devil clan. Then, I carried the responsibility of U Country and the responsibility of the Rain World. In the end, I carried the responsibility of protecting the Eastern Heaven. In the future, this responsibility might continue to grow along with my strength. I'm very tired. LV Feng and Yun Lei suddenly felt that the shame they felt just now was a little ridiculous. What bullshit shame? You're just feeling inferior because you were shocked by Ning Fan's strength, aren't you? They had never seen Ning Fan like this before. The feeling that Ning Fan gave people was that he was always sharp and his body was full of thorns. Whoever tries to hurt him would be stabbed instead. However, it turned out that the thorns on his body were just a shell. Underneath the shell was endless loneliness and exhaustion, responsibility. Do cultivators need to carry this kind of burden? Would a person like Ning Fan really care about the rise and fall of the world? What he cared about was never the lives of the common people. It was just the few figures behind him, so you don't have to worry. I won't let others kill you and search your memories. I won't lose things again and again. Even if the heavens will stop me from keeping the things I want, I will still keep them. Ning Fan's eyes suddenly became arrogant and domineering. He picked up the wine jar and drained it in one gulp. Then, he said to LV Feng and Yun Lei, I want to rest for a while tonight. Do you want to drink with me? Of course. LV Feng and Yun Lei thought it through. Their cultivation bases might not be able to help Ning Fan, but at least they could slightly melt the loneliness in Ning Fan's heart with wine.